My roommate has suddenly become incredibly creepy as he set up cameras all over the house, especially in front of my room and my bathroom, under the guise of him saying he wants to watch his dog while he's away at work. But instead, these cameras have been used to literally watch my every move, as I now feel like I'm under a constant state of surveillance, because right now I'm very scared and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I recently moved into my good friend's house and we've been living together for about 3 years now. It's also important to note that we are not partners. I don't work on account of a stressful degree, but the house is paid off and he makes enough for bills, so I buy groceries and do the chores and do some cooking, so I'm home often when I'm not in class. Well, 2 years ago, he bought a doorbell camera and security cameras for the sides and the back of the house, plus a window and door sensor for security and to monitor his dog who sometimes escapes the yard, which I thought was completely fine. But soon after, he wanted security cameras in the house itself. He claimed it was to monitor the dog's mischief. They would be in the entryway, the living room, and the hallway, which all points at our bedrooms and the bathroom. Well, I said I was opposed to this. I didn't see the point of internal cameras when the outside was covered already. He then said he would give me access to the application, buy cameras with lids, and allow me to close the lids, but I still didn't agree. I did not want to have to worry about my privacy being accessible in a hackable app, but he went ahead and did it and got them anyways. Now, the dog was often of little interest on camera as he milled about, so with the lack of activity, the cameras had a different benefit, because one day I got a text right as I left the house saying, "Hey, why are you just now leaving? You should go to the store earlier." Then at dinner, he would say, "Why didn't you get downstairs until 11 o'clock? You were supposed to feed the dog at 10. Or another time, I would say something funny happened with the dog while he was working, and he would say, "Oh, I know, I saw." If he texted with no immediate answer, I'd hear from a camera loudspeaker, "Why are you not answering?" Sometimes he posted funny things of the dog on the cameras to his Instagram story, but a few times it's something funny of me on camera. I would ask him to remove it, and although he didn't understand what the big deal was. I would close the camera lids, but because he gets super upset if I don't open them before bed, I'd mostly just leave them open to avoid scolding if I forgot. The house now feels less like a home and more like the Truman Show sometimes, often leading me to avoiding doing things because I feel I can't do anything without the fear of surveillance. I will admit, there are some things I should have been doing at home that I was pushing to a later date and time or just straight up forgetting. But still, I feel using the cameras for receipts is overstepping some kind of privacy boundary. Fear of being watched is so ingrained to me now. I catch myself sometimes unable to relax in the house or reflexively checking for a camera in my room before undressing. My friends say the cameras are harmless, that I should just get things done properly if I don't want to be monitored or called out by him. But I still feel this only causes me paranoia and frames my task struggling as my fault for what I feel was and still is an invasion of privacy. So am I in the wrong for thinking that this is affecting my productivity and my behavior? Because right now I honestly feel paranoid and I don't know what to do. Okay, holy crap, if I had a roommate who did this, I would absolutely start moving out. I would find any other place to live. Dude, this is so weird. I can understand him wanting to set up cameras in common areas to monitor where the dog is and what the dog's doing. That's totally his prerogative and I totally get that. But this guy's pointing cameras at your room and at the bathroom. Dude, this is really weird. This is not normal behavior. Not to mention the fact that he's using these cameras to catch you in the act of doing stuff. Who in their right mind is gonna send you a text message and then if you don't respond fast enough, scream over the loudspeakers on the cameras "Hey, why are you not answering your text message?" It's bro, why are you up in my business suddenly? This has gone so far beyond securing the house, and if anything, he's just trying to secure what you are and are not doing. The only person he's monitoring is you, and that is creepy. That is really creepy behavior. But my god, the fact that he thought it would be okay to post videos of you online without your permission, in your vulnerable moments in your own home, that is crazy. That is absolutely unacceptable. And in my mind, that's an absolute deal breaker. There is no way I would be okay with that. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would get out while I can, because this is slowly becoming like a slasher film, and I don't think you want to be the main star of that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My last two roommates have basically said that I'm hard to live with, and right now I'm wondering if this is true or if I'm missing something, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things off, I'm a 20-year-old international student in Australia. I usually trust my decisions, but after 2 difficult living situations in a row, I'm questioning whether I'm overreacting or if I've just been unlucky. For the first situation, 3 months after I arrived, a friend from my home country moved in with me because she said she knew no one else, and we actually shared a room together. I work night shifts and I sleep during the day, and she was disturbed by my schedule, so I tried to be very quiet and even started eating at work just to avoid any noise. Living together, however, showed our differences. She's extremely neat. Even a single hair on the floor really bothered her. Now, I'm clean, but I'm not obsessive. I always clean shared spaces like the kitchen and bathroom, but she mostly focused on her own area. Problems escalated when she received 2 huge boxes of luggage, making our small shared room very crowded. Around the same time, our housemates started complaining about her not cleaning our shared areas, taking hours cooking daily in the shared kitchen, and leaving messes. When I spoke to her, she dismissed it, saying that I don't cook anyways. I didn't eat her food, and usually I ate outside, all while she followed a very strict diet. While she was away on a trip, the housemates told me that she had been bad-mouthing me, calling me inhumane for disturbing her peace, and saying that I didn't help around the house, even though I cleaned shared areas daily. Well, feeling upset, I texted her saying that we should live separately, and even after separating, my housemates shared voice notes of her loudly insulting me at night, but I felt ending the living arrangement was the right decision. Now, the second situation is the one I'm currently in. I moved into a place with a live-in landlord who is in her 50s. Now, she was really nice at first. Rent is due on the 15th and the 30th, but over time, she started emotionally oversharing about her husband's death and about her family issues, and then she began asking to borrow money and adjusting it against the rent. This became stressful because I couldn't save anything. Even when I said I only had like $10, she would still ask for it. So about 2 weeks ago, I stopped lending money, and ever since then, she's been irritable. Today, in front of my friend, she accused me of stressing her out, using the washing machine when she needed it, and not cleaning the kitchen, which isn't true at all. I work nights and I literally sleep during the day. I am very stressed and overthinking. This is the second person who's implied that I'm difficult to live with. So seriously, should I look for a new place, or am I missing something about myself? Because I really just don't know what to do. Okay, this is not an issue with you at all in my opinion. For the first person, they sound like an absolute weirdo who will never be happy with anything you're doing. Like seriously, they're sitting there trying to be like, wow, this is all your fault. You're doing all these terrible things. When it's like, bro, all you're doing is sleeping during the day and trying to be as quiet as possible at night. You even went to like crazy lengths just to make sure she got some sleep. Like, what is she talking about? Oh, you're such a problem. Like, you haven't done anything wrong. So the first one is just a complete moron, but also so is the second landlord that you're living with. This lady's pissed off because you're not lending her money. She's only being irritable and trying to blame things on you because you stopped giving in. Not to mention her like oversharing emotional issues. It's like, bro, seriously, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry that it happened, but it's not my fault. And if anything, the common denominator amongst like both these situations is that these two people are taking advantage of you. They're taking advantage of your kindness and your ability to at least like try and keep the peace. And I'm not kidding when I say this. I hate people who act like this. They're these toxic people who don't have their crap together, who see someone who is like living their life in a peaceful way, and it's here that they decide to take advantage of that and essentially tie you up in their mess where it's like, oh, if I don't help them out, then guess what? I'm the jerk here. So honestly, I think you just had a really bad luck of roommates and landlords because these two people sound like idiots. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be looking for a new place to live because living with these people sounds miserable and I would definitely not want to put up with that. Am I the jerk for asking to order from the a la carte menu instead of paying about $80 for a set menu at my friend's birthday party? Because after it's all said and done, I'm kind of regretting not bringing this up sooner, and I don't know if I would be the jerk if I suddenly changed my mind. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out and to try and give some context, I live in City A and my best friend lives in City B. And just for a bit of context, we're both around the same age. She invited me to her 30th birthday dinner with a month's notice, but I was happy to attend as this is a milestone birthday. I booked a 4-hour train ride which cost $70, and I bought a birthday gift for about $130. And all of this was within my planned budget. Now, originally, the dinner was booked at a Thai restaurant where everyone orders their own plate. But then, a day or so after the restaurant was communicated, she had changed the venue to a Japanese restaurant. The dinner is now a group booking, with a set menu of shared dishes for the table, costing about $80 per person. Tax and gratuity are included, but the drinks are not. The dinner's also at 8 o'clock p.m., meaning that I'll be kind of wasting time in the city for most of the day. Now, I have dietary restrictions after going through a health ordeal in the past few years. I've narrowed down my triggers and even got tested to confirm my sensitivities, and that is that I don't eat seafood or mushrooms, as they do cause reactions. I've been doing well with my health lately because I've managed to keep a strict diet. Anyways, I let her know about my food restrictions early, and to her credit, she went back to the restaurant and asked the chef to create a group menu with this in mind. I told her not to fuss too much about it, and as long as there was like one 1 or 2 things that I could eat on the regular menu of 6 dishes, I would be okay. A few days passed and she sent me a no seafood, no mushroom version of the set menu, which include things like salad, pickled vegetables, stir-fried vegetables, fries, and vegetable sushi. Apparently, I'm not the only one with dietary restrictions. There's someone else that's vegan as well. So I guess us special people get our own menu. At this point, I'm realizing I would be paying $80 to eat a selection of vegetables, while the rest of the group will be getting multiple protein-heavy and specialty dishes, which are, of course, seafood dishes. This is understandable if I was vegan, but I'm not vegan and I enjoy chicken and beef. So after spending the entire day waiting to come to the restaurant, the idea of spending $80+ for a few vegetable dishes is really unappealing, and it's also financially tough. I don't want to make things difficult or take away from her special birthday, but I also feel uncomfortable paying that much for a meal that I can't fully enjoy. For reference, when I accepted the invite, I thought it was going to be individual plates, and I was looking forward to spending $40 maximum on my plate, considering how much I already spent for travel. I was thinking of asking if I could order like 2 dishes a la carte off the regular menu and pay for my own food and drinks instead of participating in the shared set menu. But I'm worried this might come across as rude or selfish, especially since it's her birthday and a group dinner. She's also a massive foodie, so being able to share a specially prepared meal with a group of friends means a lot to her. So am I the jerk if I ask to opt out of the set menu and order my own food instead? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I can see both sides of this in my opinion, and I think both options could work. For starters, I don't think you would be the jerk by like talking to your friend ahead of time and saying, hey, I kind of want to order a la carte instead. I'm still going to be there to order with you guys and like be there to experience your happy birthday dinner, but I'm just not going to be eating the exact same foods that you guys are. And that in my opinion could work. Like if you talk to her ahead of time and say like, hey, this is my plan, I'm really willing to believe that she's going to be like, oh, it's totally fine, go for it. But on the other hand, I think they have kind of gone out of their way to like make sure you can be accommodated by giving you a menu that's specifically towards your needs. So if I was in your place and I was in this situation, I would really just tough it out. I would go there and be like, okay, I've agreed to this. I want to show support to my friend. I don't want to look like I'm selfish, so I'm just going to eat the vegan menu. I'm going to show up, celebrate her birthday, and just swallow my pride and go with it. Even though it's $80, and yeah, I probably will never do something like this ever again. From the sounds of it, your friends don't sound like these really like selfish or entitled people. They sound like they're really reasonable human beings that I'm sure would understand if you asked about the a la carte menu. But if there's even like an inkling of them freaking out and being like, wow, I can't believe you would do that, or anything like that, I would personally just take the route of like, okay, I'm just gonna play along and maybe order food afterwards, or something like that, like just swallow my pride and go for it. Because for me, I would not want to rock the boat on somebody's birthday dinner. I would never want to do anything to take away from that, and I just want to like blend in and celebrate their day. My partner kept secret how much money she has in savings, and has essentially let me pay for most things in our relationship. And now I'm feeling very hurt by this, and I just don't know how to get over it. Because right now, this is really a roadblock that I seriously need to figure out. Here's what's going on. Okay, so we've been dating for nearly 5 years, and in that time, I've always had a full-time job earning average money, and she's been studying with part-time jobs earning far less. I had almost no savings, and we never really gave details about how much we had in savings until maybe like a year or so ago. Over this period, she's always said that she couldn't afford things, and I've paid a large portion of rent, probably about 70% of that, ever since we moved out together 3 years ago. I've never wanted to let money get in the way of like living or our lives in general, and I could probably do a bit better of a job of saving. And I was always happy to pay more until she started working full-time, when we would start splitting things evenly. Well, my dad passed away unexpectedly, and he left me about $500,000, which I got about 6 months ago, which is obviously life-changing. I've probably never had more than like $10,000 in my savings. We've started the process of buying a house, and I was happy to put most of the money into a deposit and pay a large portion of the mortgage until she started working full-time work. And this would be about 2 years away. Well, right before we went to submit the application, she said that she actually had $50,000 in savings, and then asked me if we should mention that in the application. She was a bit embarrassed to bring it up, and I get that she wouldn't mention this when we first started dating, and I don't even care about the amount, but she has actively said I can't afford this and just let me pay pay for things countless times. I then asked why she was so late to bring this up, that we should use some of it to pay for the house, and asked her how long she had had it. Basically, she had it the entire time, and that it was savings that she had accumulated since she started working as a teenager. And right now, I'm annoyed for a few reasons. She was going to let me put most of my money into the house without helping at all, and that all these years I've been paying a greater portion of things, including rent, food, bills, overseas holidays, entertainment, etc., while she had way more money than I ever had. I was earning more, but that meant I wasn't saving much, if anything. She also wasn't saving much. I mean, her money was mostly from before we even met. I never wanted money to get between me or anybody else, especially my partner, but I feel really hurt. I feel lied to, and I also feel taken advantage of. She's normally great and I love her, but she isn't the best decision maker sometimes, and I have caught her in little lies before, and these lies didn't really bother me much before as they were insignificant. I mean, most of the time I just laughed it off and said, why would you lie about that? But now we've hit something big in life, and this proper lie has me really worried. I'm really struggling to get past it, and the relationship feels tainted now. I'm not sure if I can get past it, but everything else in the relationship is great, and it's really not a good atmosphere to be trying to buy a house. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I think it might be time to hold off on buying a house and figure this out entirely before you move forward. Whether that means apologies are given out or some kind of discussions had, I think regardless of how you want to do this, you definitely need to take time to figure it out. Because yeah, I think I would also be pretty pissed off if my partner said, oh, I can't afford this, and yet they had $50,000 saved up that they just weren't saying anything about. Meanwhile, I'm busting my butt every day just to make things work for us, and she's secretly got $50,000 in the bank she easily could have used to pitch in and help out just a little bit. So hopefully this is able to work out for you too, because this really is kind of a big hair in the soup, and it's something that absolutely needs to be addressed. Am I the jerk for removing the AirTag my in-laws hid in my baby's diaper bag? Because after I found out about this, I was pissed. And now my husband's family is basically taking my mother-in-law's side, even though this feels like a very violating thing for them to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my husband and I have a 6-month-old daughter. She is the first grandchild on his side, so his parents are very involved. We went to their house last weekend for dinner, and everything seemed normal at first. In fact, my mother-in-law held the baby while I ate my food. When we got home later, I unpacked the diaper bag and I found an AirTag inside one of the pockets. I thought maybe I put it there by accident or something like that, but I checked my phone and it was not mine. My husband checked his phone and it showed the AirTag belonged to his mom. They had put a tracker in our baby's diaper bag without telling us. My husband then texted his mom asking why it was there, and she called and said it was for safety in case something happened, like if someone stole the stroller or if the baby was taken at the mall. I told her that was out of line and not okay, but she said we were being dramatic and that everyone tracks things nowadays. She also said that we probably share our location with people anyways. The next day, I returned the AirTag to their house and I told them they are not allowed to put trackers on our child or her belongings without our permission. And now they're upset, saying I don't trust them and that I embarrass them. My father-in-law said that I should be grateful they care enough to worry, and my mother-in-law cried and told my husband that she feels like I'm pushing her out of her granddaughter's life. My husband agrees with me but thinks that I could have said it a little bit nicer. His sister then texted me saying I know how their mom is and that I don't have to make it such a big issue. But my God, I feel like secretly tracking someone's baby is not normal, even if the intention was good. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I'm really pissed off about this. Dude, I am just pissed off thinking about this. There is no way this is okay. First off, why is everyone trying to be like, oh, don't be so hard on my mother-in-law. She only meant to be nice while she was tracking you. Bro, are we in opposite land? What's happening right now? You don't just track someone else's baby like that. And there's not even a situation where it's like, oh yeah, do I have your permission to do this? Because the answer is always going to be no. What do you mean? This is absolutely unacceptable. There is never a situation where this will ever be okay. So for anyone in this situation to be like, oh wow, you're just making this a big deal. You're being so dramatic. I mean, everybody tracks everything nowadays. But it's like, yeah, I track my package, not someone else's child. What do you mean you want to track it in case something happens? That is not your job, and that's not your responsibility. My kid's not going to get taken at the mall. The stroller is not going to get stolen. Why on earth would you assume it's going to happen? Because if anything, it just proves that the mother-in-law doesn't trust the original poster and clearly thinks they're a bad mom. And if that's the case, then holy crap, I would probably never go back to their house. You want me to show you what it's like to cut my granddaughter out of your life? Just watch. That absolutely will happen. So no, you're not the jerk for getting pissed off about this. And anybody defending her actions are completely wrong. Am I the jerk for kicking my friend out of my house after she brought a stranger to my house when we were all gonna hang out? Because now things are really awkward and I don't know if I took things just a bit too far. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I invited 2 friends over for a chill night at my place. Just some snacks, some movies, and us catching up. It was nothing wild. I specifically wanted it small because I'm not in the mood to host a whole group. Also, my place is small and I'm very particular about my space. My friend, let's call her Leah, said that she would come, but she also asked if she could bring another friend and I just told her no. And no, I didn't say it in a rude way. I just said I wanted it to be only us because I'm tired and I'm not in the mood for meeting new people. And when I said this, Leah said okay. So imagine my face when I opened my door later that night and she's standing there with a guy I've never even seen before. She smiles like it's normal and says, "Oh, this is Ken, he's just tagging along." And I was instantly annoyed because I had already said no. I then told her I'm not comfortable having a stranger in my home. I asked her why she brought him anyways, and that's when she said that he was bored and she didn't want to leave him behind, and that really pissed me off because why is his boredom my problem? I then told her again, I'm sorry, but no. I said that you couldn't bring anyone. Well, at this point, Leah got embarrassed and tried to laugh it off. She said, "He's not dangerous, he's my friend." But here's the thing, I don't care. I don't know him. I don't want him in my space. I don't want to be responsible for entertaining him. I don't want to worry about my stuff. Ken then looked awkward and said it's fine, he could just wait outside. And Leah got mad and said that I'm being rude and acting like she brought a criminal. I told her I'm not calling him a criminal. I'm just enforcing a boundary. So I told her if she can't respect my house rules, then she can leave too. So with that, she stormed off with Ken and slammed my gate. I really feel like if I let this slide once, she'll keep doing it. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because I really don't know if I'm in the wrong. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You made it pretty clear before she came over that no, you don't want anyone else coming. You want it to be a small friend group and you just want to relax. And my God, I totally get that. I wouldn't want some random person there that I don't even know, especially when I'm exhausted and I want to talk with friends. Like, dude, now I can't be myself. I can't like relax and let my hair down, so to say. Because even if they sit in the corner and they're quiet and they say literally nothing, the dynamics of the group are just going to be completely off. And that's clearly not what you wanted, and honestly, I don't blame you. So if anyone's the jerk, it's Leah for bringing this guy anyways, even after you told her no. That was incredibly stupid, and if she feels embarrassed about this, then that is literally her own fault and not yours. My entitled neighbors blame my parents for the scratch that they made on their own car, claiming that if we didn't ask them to move it out of our driveway, they wouldn't have scratched it in the first place. Here's what happened. So at my parents' previous house, they shared a driveway with the neighbors. The driveway was very narrow, and a car could barely drive between the houses. And then the driveway became wider into 2 garages for both houses. For 25 years, previous neighbors had no issues, especially as they mostly used their garages for storage rather than cars. But when new neighbors moved in, that's when trouble began. The neighbor's wife would always park in the driveway, making it hard to walk or get bikes through, and my parents, trying to be nice, just ignored it. Then their son got a car, and they started parking 2 cars in the driveway, taking up the entire space of the driveway. Finally, after a year or so, my parents cleared out their garage and told the neighbors they couldn't block the driveway anymore. The neighbors agreed but continued parking there, insisting my parents just knock to ask them to move. Well, this led to my parents having to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes on the weekends, or even wait 10 to 20 minutes for them to move the cars, as they were either out walking the dog or they just didn't hear us. And this was really frustrating for both parties. After months of this, the neighbors cleared their own garage, but while trying to park, the wife scratched the entire side of her car. She then screamed at my mom and blamed my parents as they had forced her to park in the garage and demanded that they pay for the damage. Well, my mom, being fed up, yelled back, saying it was a shared driveway and they never had any issues with previous neighbors. And then she just shut the door in her face. And the best part about it is that they never brought it up again. So maybe they realized how ridiculous it was, but they never said hi or spoke to my parents for the entire year before my parents moved out. But at least they finally stopped parking in the driveway because their attitude about the entire scenario was just completely out of control. Yeah, these people were being super entitled. Like, how selfish do you have to be to act like that? They really took up the entire driveway and then was like, "Oh, if you want me to move our car, then just ask us." But it's like, no, buddy, get your car out of my side of the driveway. I should not have to ask you to move your car. Like, what is going on right now? Like, if someone did that to me, I would be half tempted just to tow their car because that's such a selfish thing to do. Not to mention the fact that they tried to be like, "Oh yeah, you scratched my car, this is your fault." And it's like, are you kidding me? We haven't even parked our car in the driveway. You literally scratched your car on your own. So truly, I'm glad your parents got to move away from them because their attitude was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk walks into me on my wheelchair claiming that I was going too fast and that I need to slow down and watch where I'm going. And despite the fact that my wheelchair was literally parked and this guy walked into me because he was staring at his phone too much, I snapped at this guy in a way that I don't think he'll ever forget. Here's what happened. Okay, let me start off by saying that I am a wheelchair user. An accident in 2016 left me with a progressive disability, and last year I graduated to a tricked out power chair as a consolation prize. Now, my chair is extremely noticeable if you are paying attention. Not only is it larger than life, but I have a 4-foot flexible pole on the back of it with a multicolored pinwheel on top, a pink fairy, a rainbow pride flag, and a bright yellow tag to let people know that I'm visually impaired. And there are literally rainbow butterfly wings on the back of my seat, so I am impossible to miss. So there I am at my local grocery store, bopping along and just doing my own thing. I mean, independence feels great. I finished my shop and I meandered outside, and just as I got outside, a group was going in, so I stopped to let them pass. And one would think this is all good, right? Well, not so much. I should mention I was also very much brightly colored, wearing pink short pants and a bright yellow t-shirt, with rainbow striped Pride sneakers on my feet, and a rainbow tie-dye bucket hat. So you probably get the point. I'm hard to miss, right? But oh my friend, I assumed way too much. There I am, quietly waiting for the group to go into the store, and along comes some jerk staring at his phone. There were people in front of me, on my left and behind me, you know, because it was a busy shopping day. I had nowhere to move to without running over a very unhappy pedestrian. I watched this guy booking it into the store, his face intently staring at a screen, and then bam, he runs right into my legs and the side of my chair. Now, these power chairs are heavy. Mine is a new model with lithium batteries, and it still weighs 250 pounds without me in it. And the dude slammed so hard, he moved me sideways with my brakes locked. This idiot glanced up from his screen long enough to glare at me and say, "Slow down." And as we're Canadian, he didn't even give me an excuse me or sorry. So at that point, I was pissed. I said to him, "Excuse you, jerk. I was stopped. You plowed right into me." I then fixed on him with a patented Canadian glare of disapproval. Well, the guy gave me another glare, looked around, and then mumbled. And then he eventually huffed off. And I will say, I'm normally a pretty chill guy, but when entitled jerks walk along with the manners of a toddler and do something like that, it really pisses me off. Yeah, that is insane that that guy would be like, "Wow, you need to slow down," when he couldn't have been more obviously staring at his phone instead of looking forward. And this is 100% his fault, by the way. The original poster was parked in their scooter. They couldn't go anywhere and they weren't even moving. So for this guy to be like, "Wow, slow down," that's clearly him projecting because he's the one that needs to slow down and look up from his stupid phone once in a while, because the way he reacted was completely unacceptable. I found out that my girlfriend cheated on me a year ago, but my legal status in the United States depends on us staying together, and I'm now at such a crossroads that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I met my girlfriend over a year ago while I was on a J1 visa in the United States. I met her only 9 days after arriving, so we basically spent my entire 3 months there together. We fell in love pretty fast and had an amazing time. We knew I had to go home at the end of the 3 months, but we had many deep conversations about us and what we wanted, and decided we would give being in a long-distance relationship a shot. I left the States, and about 4 weeks later, she came to visit me in my home country. It was like a movie, showing her the small town I grew up in and all the places I went to as a kid. We even did a little trip to some close-by countries. We both had a very convenient work situation where we could both be remote, so every 6 weeks, one of us would go visit the other one for a month. On the days we were apart, we would FaceTime every single day, and we never missed a day, and talking to her was so easy. It got to a stage where we realized that going back and forth isn't sustainable, so we looked into moving to the same country together. She happens to be a European citizen through her dad, so it made sense for her to at least try to move to my country for a bit and try to work remotely. We had a great time, but realized pretty quickly that the lifestyle in my country wasn't really suited to us, including the life that we want, plus the job market is complete trash. So we decided that because everything about the relationship was perfect, we would get legally married so that I could live with her in the States. It made more sense, even for things outside of the relationship. Like, for example, I have a STEM degree that would pay extremely well in the city that she's from, and it's hard for me to get STEM jobs in my hometown. She also has a very close relationship with her family, and while I'm on good terms with mine, it's definitely not as close as hers. Anyways, I'm extremely excited for this new life in the United States. I have a lot of friends in her city from living there, and I have potential to make a serious amount of money. I came to the United States, we got legally married, and while I'm waiting for my green card, I was able to get my EAD work permit, which allowed me to secure my dream job in this dream city, which is paying me about 3 times more than any job I've ever had in my life. And I started this job yesterday. Anyways, around the time of the anniversary of us deciding to be exclusive, she started started acting weird when I was talking about saying that it was a happy day and we should mark the occasion. She didn't respond to my text messages about it and avoided conversations when I talked about it in person. She put it down to being so stressed out at work, and to be fair, she has a very stressful job, so I believed her, but I still had a weird feeling in my gut. So I said it again a few weeks later, saying that we should do something to mark the occasion now that work is less stressful, even if it's late now. But when I said that, she got weird about it again. So then I decided to have a snoop, which I'm not proud of and I know is frowned upon by many, but we have talked about it and gave each other a license to snoop around. And for the record, she snoops in my phone all the time. I don't really care. I've got nothing to hide. But for me, I've never snooped through her phone until now. Anyways, all I did was search the name of guys that she was seeing before me in her text messages, and I saw all that I needed to know. The next morning, I was in a terrible mood, and she could see this, so after her persistently asking why, I say that I saw something on her phone, and I need her to explain it to me honestly. Long story short, she had hooked up with this guy about a week after we had become exclusive. They went on a dinner date, went to a nightclub afterwards, and then went back to her apartment and spent some quality time together, if you know what I mean. And she just confessed all of this to me today. So now I'm heartbroken and I don't know what to do. We've had such a dream relationship and everything is great other than this. I also can't stay in this dream job in this really cool city if we break up. The situation in my home country is kind of bleak, and I'm so conflicted for these reasons. She also said that if I decide to leave her, she completely understands, but also doesn't want to wait around pretending to be with me until I get my green card. I know we were in our early days, and I understand long distance is very tough, but I think I've got the right to be upset if she spent some quality time with someone after we agreed to be exclusive. So right now I feel completely broken and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this is a devastating situation. Can you imagine going to another country for someone you thought you were in love with, only to then find out that yes, they have been cheating on you behind your back? And it doesn't matter if it happened early in the relationship or late in the relationship. Cheating is cheating and that is not okay. But to make it even worse, you finally have your dream job, you're working on getting your green card and everything's going well, and then this gets dropped on you like a ton of bricks. Like, that has got to be so awful. Like, I can't imagine being in that kind of situation because this really would like completely change my life. Like, this really is completely unfair because you literally went to another country to start work, all for this lady that you thought you loved and like you wanted to be with. So hopefully there's some kind of like, I don't know, immigration lawyer that can help you through this process, who might have a good idea of like, okay, these are your options, this is what you can do. Because the way you got treated by this lady is absolutely unacceptable, and you do not deserve to have your life uprooted in this kind of way. An entitled old jerk tries to get up in my business by asking me why I was taking so much medication, causing me to snap at him in the pharmacy line in a way that this guy truly will never forget. Here's what happened. So I have a chronic health condition that is treatable, but it requires daily medication. I'm also a very tall and fit water polo player and aquatic marathoner, so I'm not someone who looks sick in any kind of way, which is why I think this whole situation happened in the first place. In my country, I'm able to get my medications for free for several months of supply at a time, so when I do go to the pharmacy, I usually have to fill my backpack up with several bottles of medication. Today I went and it was busy with a long line of all types of people. As I'm putting medication into my backpack, this weird old man at the window next to me starts to tap me on my shoulder and says, "What's all that medication for?" Now, I will admit, I was pretty shocked by this and just looked at him incredulously. I said to him, "I'm certainly not going to tell you." Well, he immediately responded sorry with a horrified look on his face. The pharmacist then very sternly told him that he can't ask other people those types of questions, and then she turned to me and apologized to me. I told her thank you, and then I walked out while everyone else in line was just kind of staring at me and this entitled old jerk. Now, I suppose he meant no harm by it, but like, why on earth would you ever think it's okay to ask a complete stranger about their medication or even their health conditions? I feel bad for snapping at him, but I was just so taken aback by his nosiness, and I was embarrassed when I realized everyone was staring. I just don't know why some people are like this, because this was absolutely unacceptable. Yeah, talk about bad manners. Why on earth would anybody in their right mind be like, "Hey, why do you have all that medication?" It's like, dude, that is none of your business. Like, seriously, stay out of it. Like, the pharmacist was right. You can't just ask people that question. Not just because you need to mind your own business, but it could also be like a really sensitive situation. So yeah, I don't blame you for snapping at that guy, because if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. My former boss said that he wouldn't be able to pay me in 90 days simply because his business was falling apart. So I decided to find a new job immediately, forcing him to find a replacement despite him begging me to please stick around. Here's what happened. So my former boss didn't realize that to actually make money, he had to show up for work. Instead, he came and went as he pleased and expected me to pick up the slack and essentially try to play the role of receptionist, paralegal, office manager, and attorney. And for the record, I never gave legal advice. He just expected me to, and so did his client. clients. His friend was my divorce attorney and worked in the same building, so he would pop in to just chat and see how things were going. But even he started noticing that my boss was absent more than not and questioned how things were going. I started confiding in him that I was really concerned because I could see my former boss shelling out more than he was making, and his clients were less than pleased at never being able to speak with their attorney. Then my former boss started doing some unethical and shady things to move cases along, and I started getting really nervous about what would happen if the former boss got caught and what that would mean for me. I told my attorney and former boss's friend all of this, and he said that his own firm needed extra support staff, but he didn't want it to appear like he was poaching me from his friend on purpose, and that I had to talk with the former boss about the state of the office and see if there was a way to salvage things. Well, I never really got that chance because later that day, my former boss stormed into the office and told me that I needed to start looking for a new job and to just take the first offer I get because he was probably going to have to shut the doors in the next 90 days and he couldn't guarantee me a paycheck. I spoke with my attorney the next day about it, and he shrugged and said for me to just give my 2 weeks notice and call it a day. Later that same day, my former boss came into the office and told me to hold off on finding a new job and to give him a month to try and turn things around. But I'm just thinking to myself, sorry, but I've got bills to pay, so I'm not going to sit idly and wonder if I'm going to be seeing another paycheck or not. I drafted my 2 weeks notice only because my attorney wanted this from me as a professional courtesy to his friend, and then I gave it to my former boss at the end of the pay period. Well, this is when my former boss gave me a weird look. He said to me, "You're leaving, but why?" So I responded by saying, well, per our conversation, you advised me to find other employment, so I did. He asked me where I was going, and then I said the friend's law firm. He said to me, "Seriously? When I make this business work, I'm gonna want you back. Is that gonna be a problem?" I responded by saying, well, good luck with that. He then asked me what he's paying me, and I said to him, less than you in half the hours, but at least I know his checks won't bounce. I heard from my replacement on his first solo day as I trained him during my last week that my former boss regretted telling me on a whim to leave because I was the only one who knew anything about his cases, which, you know what? It sucks to suck. He should not have left me to run his firm without any help, knowing that I'm not an attorney or a licensed paralegal, just so he could go on lavish vacations and ignore all of his clients. Even if my former boss wanted me to come back, I've already been bumped to full-time hours and gotten a raise in less than a month, and there's a promise of a second raise very soon to put me at what I was making at my former boss's place, but here I get paid holidays, PTO, and some sick leave. So basically, there's no way on God's green earth I would ever go back to my former boss even if he begged me. Yeah, talk about a bad business decision. The second someone's like, oh yeah, I can't pay you, it's time to find another job, and then they try to double back and be like, psych, just kidding, don't get a new job. Like, I would have already had a new job lined up right then and there. No one's gonna mess with my paycheck and no one is gonna make it so I can't make ends meet. Especially if I'm the one putting in all the hard work, like that would make me go insane. There's no way that's gonna happen. So if I was in the original poster's shoes, I absolutely would have done the same thing. I would have gone to this guy's competition and been like, okay, it's less pay and it's less hours, but you know what? It's better than not getting paid. Because what this boss did was completely inappropriate, and I do not blame you for moving on in the slightest. My husband and I were planning on getting divorced, but my husband ended up cheating on me before we could make that happen. And after my sister-in-law put my husband on blast and basically made all of this public, I'm now struggling with the results of this situation, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been together for 17 years and married for 10. We have 2 daughters, ages 14 and 16, and I got pregnant very early in the relationship, but me and my husband decided to make it work. We were happy for a while, obviously had another daughter, and eventually decided to make it official, and we were very happy for a time. We've been drifting apart for years. We've never been a couple prone to arguing or fighting. We are both avoiders, but a year or so ago, I realized we were avoiding each other more and more. We've both had mental health struggles, and just managing our daily responsibilities took so much out of us that we didn't have anything left for each other. When we did talk, it was mostly about logistics and the kids. We finally had the divorce talk about 10 months ago, and we both agreed it was probably the right thing to do, but neither of us was enthusiastic to uproot our whole lives, deal with the financial side of things, or face breaking it to the kids. We talked about whether maybe we can still make it work and fall back in love, whether we should consider marital counseling or something. Things were left very open-ended. Then, a week later, my father passed away. We both embraced that as an excuse and agreed to revisit the issue later, but never did. Now, the last year has been rough. I've been mourning my dad and always had the future of our marriage in the back of my mind, but we've pretty much kept operating as if that conversation never happened. At this point, I'm still wondering if we can work things out, and I'm asking my friend for contact information for any kind of like marital counselors they might have. Well, to make a long story short, my sister-in-law spots him out and about with another woman and she loses her mind. She puts him on blast to her whole family, and it finally gets back to the kids. Now, I'm I'm obviously not thrilled about it, but I'm also not going to act like it's the end of the world when our relationship had deteriorated to essentially us being roommates with shared children who hook up occasionally. He apologized and we agreed that clearly it's time to separate and that he's going to find some kind of apartment or something like that. And I'm having my own emotions about all of this, and it's honestly been rough. Well, as a result of all of this, the kids won't even speak to him. They're saying that once he moves out, they never want to see him again. And this is devastating for him and upsetting to me because he's a great dad and a good influence on them. The explanation that I've gone with for both his family and the kids is that the relationship has been essentially over and we've been holding off on divorce while I'm dealing with my dad's estate. But there was no big betrayal here. Most of his family accepted that, along with a reminder that we have kids to worry about, and the only concern in all of this is keeping it friendly and drama-free for their sake. But his sister and my kids have not. My older daughter keeps asking me if we agreed that it was okay to see other people, and I'm not willing to straight up lie to her, so I've just been going with, well, I'm not going to get into the details of everything, and repeating what I said previously. But she keeps parroting her aunt that if we didn't agree to see other people, then it is cheating. And at this point, I don't really know what to do here. I'm not going to lie and say I don't have some level of frustration towards my husband for jumping into another woman's bed without thinking about what it could do to the kids, or having the courtesy to let me know that things are definitely over. I'm worried about my kids picking up on that emotion from me when I'm trying to present a united front with my soon-to-be ex. I'm frustrated that I don't get to process all of this privately because my sister-in-law is a gossip and she likes to stir the pot. I can tell my girls feel incredibly hurt and betrayed, and I can't help but blame myself as well because clearly we should have put this marriage to rest a long time ago and saved us all this grief. How do I fix this moving forward? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't think there's anything you can do to fix this. Yes, it does sound like you two probably should have separated a while back, but there was way too much going on and your dad passed away, and that in and of itself can be crazy, and I completely understand that. But the person who crossed a line, like seriously, was your husband. And yes, the circumstance sucks, and your sister-in-law is a gossip and she's putting all this out in the public, but at the end of the day, she is right. Your husband cheated on you, like he straight up did that. No matter how you try to frame it, that is exactly what happened. And I'm honestly right there with you when you're like, okay, I want to process this privately. I don't want everybody knowing my business, and I don't want this out in the open like this. So truly, I'm so sorry you're dealing with all of this, and I'm so sorry that this is the route your husband decided to take. Because regardless of how your relationship really was going, this truly ended up being completely unfair for both you and your daughters. My entitled neighbors have parties on the weeknights until 3 o'clock in the morning, and after dealing with this all summer, as well as making several complaints to my HOA, I now feel like our life is falling apart because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live in a master planned HOA community, and we have a noise ordinance set in place stating that outside noise is supposed to stop at 10 o'clock p.m. And everyone else on my street respects this for the most part. The people behind me sometimes go a little late, but they are about 27 years old with 2 toddlers who are otherwise extremely respectful, so maybe going like 30 to 45 minutes over doesn't really bother me or anybody else. But the family in question though has massive parties. We're talking just their guest cars take up both sides of the entire street, plus both sides of the side street between my half of the street and theirs. Anytime you go outside, there's no less than 5 to 10 people on the front patio, and sometimes like another 10 to 15 people in the backyard, and at least another 10 inside of the house. And you can hear them inside because they leave the front door open. Every weekend during the summer, there's always about 40-something people at their house. The older teens will hang out around the cars, and they are loud, they're rude, and they're disrespectful. Plus, they throw their trash everywhere. One example of them being disrespectful and rude was when I was walking home with my mini pig. And yes, just for clarity, I am talking about the farm animal. She was leashed and following behind me, eating her snacks that I dropped for her, and I dropped some popcorn behind me to encourage her to follow along. Now, I understand different cultures have different beliefs around animals and all this other stuff, but these teenagers threw bottles at her when they saw her, screaming out that she startled them. Also, I should add that the HOA knows about my pig. She's registered with my city, and my property is in ordinance with the city guidelines for having a pet pig. Well, when they did that, I scolded them firmly, but never raising my voice at them, stating that what they just did was a very cruel thing to do. Well, one of the adults heard me and came running over, further startling my already scared pig, and proceeds to berate me for screaming at frightened children. During the summer, we only have to deal with their crazy parties during the weekend. However, the second football season starts. Every night that there's a football game on, there is a party. It's driving me absolutely insane. I work from home, so for me personally, they aren't messing up any kind of sleep schedule or anything like that. But my 12-year-old obviously has a sleep schedule. He has to get up at 6:30 in the morning for school. When the neighbors are partying until 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 houses down, and it sounds like they're in my backyard, it's severely affects him. I've sent in video proof of the noise with timestamps to the HOA, and I know several of my neighbors have as well. I've even contacted the security people that we have, and I've personally sent no less than 30 complaints, and nothing has changed. Last Sunday, things escalated even further, and I was once again walking my pig. Now, we do live in a desert, so it's way too hot to walk her during the day because she will literally split a hoof and then not be able to walk for days because of the pain. Well, the adults started yelling and hollering, making all kinds of unnerving animalistic types of squeals, which really freaked my pig out. So I had to risk her feet just to walk around the long way to our house so that we could avoid their house. I get that we both own our homes, and sometimes this is part of home ownership, but this feels so excessive and completely unnecessary. And right now, I don't know what to do anymore. I also didn't take her for a walk last night because of Monday Night Football. She was so sad she didn't get to go for her walk, and she just sat at the gate and was whining. I take her for a walk every single night, and we don't cause any problems. She is no different than anyone else walking their dog on a leash. And now I feel like the house full of bullies is dictating what I do with my life and my pets because of their rude behavior. The HOA has been wonderful for all other complaints, approvals, or anything else that we have needed from them. So I don't understand why this issue is being completely disregarded. What should I do? First and foremost, I want to say that I've been in this situation before, and trust me, it really sucks. Having neighbors that are rude and obnoxious and incredibly loud at all hours of the night, it is never a fun experience, and it really does suck entirely. So to that end, I completely sympathize, and I know exactly where you're coming from. But in my opinion, I think you've done all the reasonable things that you can do. You've talked to your HOA, you've complained, you've shown proof that they're being way too loud. You've done everything you can except for one very specific thing that I would definitely do if I was in your shoes. Because if I lived 3 doors down from these people and I heard them making this much noise, I would 100% call the police and complain. There is no reason that you should have to put up with this. Their antics and their behavior is completely out of control. Because you know what you said goes both ways. Yes, they own a house, but so do you. And you signed up for this HOA just like they did. And they are supposed to keep the noise down after 10 o'clock. That is the rules of the neighborhood, and they need to do that. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely call the police. Because this is not something that anyone should ever have to deal with.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
An entitled jerk runs into me on a walking path, all because he was running on the wrong side. He even went as far as claiming that I was the one at fault and that I needed to stop acting like this path was reserved just for me. Here's what happened. Okay, so where I'm from, it is customary to walk, run, or cycle on the right-hand side, just like the same way traffic flows on the road. So I was having my usual lunch break walk, as I do nearly every day, and I had a guy literally run into me. My route takes me past our local sports stadium, and like most stadiums, the forecourts are long and wide, leaving plenty of space for everyone to move around. The side furthest from the stadium is separated from the tram line by a long, straight hedgerow. So I was walking the length of the stadium with this hedgerow on my right-hand side, close enough that every now and then, the longer protruding branches lightly brush my right hand. And I was doing this while looking up at the stadium and reminiscing about the nice times I have shared there with my wife. About 2/3 of the way along, there's a crossing point over the tram lines, and I can only assume that this is where he came from, as for the duration of my walk along the side of the stadium, there had been not one single person in sight. I figured this was because there must be a service vehicle coming from behind me, and I stopped to look over my shoulder, but there was nothing. There was nobody there. Only the wide open boulevard and not a soul in sight. I turned back to face the direction I was walking and put my arms slightly out to my sides, as if to say, what is going on, with a facial expression to match it. This guy literally ran into me and said, "You think this path is reserved just for you?" And he shouted this as making shoulder-to-shoulder contact, causing me to stumble. I stood there for a second trying to comprehend what had just happened, and I shouted back at him by saying, "You literally saw me walking there the whole time. There was no need for that." And he did not even look back, but just continued his jog. A few hundred meters further, and there is a bridge that goes over the motorway where the path becomes smaller, perhaps 4 to 5 meters wide, with barriers on both sides. Now, I'm still sticking to the right, and a different jogger passes on my left, but decided to not move back to the right and just stay in the middle of the path. At this point, a cyclist is approaching, keeping to the right side, and starts to swerve, literally because the jogger has positioned himself in a way that the cyclist cannot pass without hitting him. And this jogger still doesn't move 1 centimeter from his line, forcing the cyclist to stop just to avoid contact. We catch each other's eyes and just shake our heads at each other in disdain, because we seriously could not believe that people could be this selfish. Yeah, that's insane to me, because seriously, all you have to do is sit on the right-hand side if you're on the path. And the fact that that guy ran into you and was like, "Oh yeah, you think this path belongs to you?" It's like like, dude, no, of course it doesn't belong to me, but you're clearly on the wrong side. So yeah, if I was in that situation, I would be just as baffled, because that is seriously not that hard to follow. An entitled Karen gets up in my face after my medicine gets filled before hers at a pharmacy, forcing me to talk back to her in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to preface this by saying that I'm not one for confrontation, but when I am pushed to that point, I will speak up, but it takes me a lot to get to that point. I went to the pharmacy in the morning just after opening, and this is something I tried to avoid due to it being the witching hour for entitled old people, but I had things to do later on, and I put it off to the point that I was out of my meds. There was one person in the waiting area, which was this old lady tapping her cane impatiently against a shopping cart. I got invited up to the window by the tech, told them my name and what I was there for, and she goes off to the med storage area to find it. Well, this entitled Karen didn't like that, I guess, because she came rushing up to the window with her cart and cane to yell. First she yelled at me, and then she yelled at the tech. She wanted to know why I was getting my meds before her, even though she was here before me. And every time she referred to me, she would hit me in the leg and the knee with her cane, and she was not doing this gently. Now, I didn't really have anywhere to escape, because this pharmacy's pickup window was really small. So I had a wall to my right, her to my left, the counter with a window in front of me, and this Karen literally parked her cart right against me. I couldn't even properly turn around to move the cart. The tech tried explaining that they were filling her script while mine has already been filled. I mean, mine had been shipped in, so they didn't even have to do anything other than put the order in and hand it to me. This Karen still wasn't happy with that answer and said that no one else should be getting their meds until she gets hers, once again moving to hit me in the leg. Now at this point, I am pissed off. My leg was throbbing, the tech gave her a reasonable answer, and I just wanted to pay and get my meds. After she smacked me the 5th time with her cane, I told her in the best mom voice I have that if you hit me with that cane one more time, I will take it from your hands and put it so far up where the sun doesn't shine that you will be tasting the rubber foot on it. She then muttered something about respect and all this other garbage, but I just told her that she needed to shut up, sit down, and wait for her meds. They are working on it. I also threw in that the world didn't stop for her problems, nor did it revolve around her. Well, as a result, she did sit down, and I'm not sure if it's because of what I said or because the tech offered to call the police for assault. I did consider it, but turned her down in the end because I didn't want to stick around any longer than I needed to. As I was packing my meds up into my bag, the pharmacist came out and told her they weren't going to fill her script now and that she needed to leave. So in the end, she didn't get her medications and was kicked out of the store. She gave me an awful glare as I was backing out of my parking spot, and to be completely honest, I thought she was going to rush out into the lot and claim that I hit her or something like that, because based on the way she acted in the pharmacy, I definitely would not put it past her. Okay, this is a fantastic story for so many reasons. For starters, I think the original poster absolutely met fire with fire. This Karen was literally smacking her in the leg and treating her so poorly for literally no reason. Like she was up in this window screaming at everybody, all while literally assaulting the original poster. And so at that point, after getting boxed into a corner and then pushed around and hit repeatedly, like right then, that's when the gloves would be off. And the original poster handled this correctly. Like I would not put up with that for a second because nobody should have to deal with that. But more importantly, in my opinion, is the way that the pharmacy themselves handled this. They didn't just fill the script and be like, okay, we'll get your medicine for you. They said, no, you're not getting your script filled and you need to leave. And that, in my opinion, is the only correct response in this scenario. You don't bend to this stupid Karen's whims and be like, oh yeah, we'll get your script, don't worry about it. Because that just shows that you have no spine and you will absolutely give in when someone pushes you hard enough. And it displays this awful pattern that yes, you're gonna let them get away with that. So the way the original poster and the pharmacy handled this was perfect in my opinion. Because when someone's talking to you like that and treating you like garbage, you have every right to defend yourself and not put up with that for a single minute. Would I be the jerk if I invite everyone from my husband's friend group to our wedding reception, except for one girl who we've always had problems with? Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been married to my husband for a year now, but we're finally having the reception in December of this year. My husband has a friend group since high school, and they all went to school together. Besides us, it consists of 5 couples and 3 single people, and the one girl that I'm gonna mention is the only single girl in the group. Let's call her Tiffany for the sake of the story. Tiffany dated one of the guys for 5 years before breaking up with him after she decided to cheat on him. He quickly moved on and started dating a younger coworker. They had been dating for 2 years now, and she was very bitter over the breakup and caused a stir in the friend group even though it was all her fault. So I'm considering not inviting her due to an incident that happened last year during Christmas. That year we all got gifts for each other. We hosted the Christmas event at our house and everyone came on time except for her. Not only was she late, she also didn't greet my husband and I, but she greeted everybody else. She also got everybody's gifts gifts except for my husband and myself, citing that she only got gifts for the real couples. Now, I brushed it off the first time, but she said it again twice. She then left early, and everyone, including us, were confused as to why she acted like that. Most of the friend group sided with us, but a girl and a guy were defending her, claiming her social awkwardness and inability to read social cues were the reason why she acted the way that she did. But I felt like her words and her actions were so deliberate because there's no way that she would forget to give us a gift or to even greet us. She definitely knew better. It felt rude and on purpose. Even though half the group dislikes her, the other half is still fond of her and close to her. They hang out with her regularly, and we still hang out with them too, but without the girl in attendance. Tiffany also reacted poorly to the news of my pregnancy. She asked me if it was an accident, if we truly loved each other, and all this other stuff. And it was the strangest reaction I've ever had to my pregnancy. Now, for a bit of context, I dated my husband for 2 years before our engagement and our marriage. We have a baby, and we also have known each other for nearly 10 years, and we were close friends for most of that time before we started dating. I was not part of this friend group until we started dating, even though I also went to school with them. My husband also isn't close with her and has never really been that close. In fact, they've never really gotten along. She's really sweet to the other women in the group, but just not to me. We're the only married couple with a baby in the group, and everyone else is dating seriously, with no engagements on the horizon. Now, the reason I'm making this post is because I'm reading that it's rude to exclude one person out of a whole friend group to a wedding, and I'm just wondering if I'm in the wrong for this. My husband is supportive, and we both don't want to invite her, but honestly, this whole situation really sucks, and we don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, no, you would not be the jerk for excluding this lady from your wedding. She sounds like a piece of work, and she doesn't sound like a friend in the slightest. Like she's exclusively rude to you and your husband, and has pretty obviously made that known to pretty much everybody in the group. And any people trying to be like, oh yeah, her social awkwardness is the reason she can't do things right. She can't read social cues. She can't help it. Like, I would understand that if this was a child of some kind, but Tiffany in this story is 27 years old. That is more than enough time to understand social cues and at least have some semblance of what's going on. Like, I'm sorry, that is not a good enough excuse, if even an excuse in the first place. Because that's just a really convenient reason for someone to get away with being a jerk, which is exactly what Tiffany is. So in my opinion, I don't blame you for cutting her out of your wedding entirely, because her attitude about you and your husband have been completely toxic, and in my opinion, you should not have to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not allowing my friend to bring her emotional support animal to my house after it destroyed my furniture the last time they were here? Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I have a close friend who we will call Amy, who has a small dog that she refers to as her emotional support animal. Now, I'm a huge animal lover, and I have no problem with pets in general, so when she asked if she could bring her dog over a few months ago for a small gathering, I was totally fine with it. However, during that visit, her dog completely destroyed one of my couch cushions by chewing it up, and also scratched the legs of my coffee table. Amy apologized, but she kind of brushed it off and said to me, he's still learning to behave in new environments. Now, I didn't push back too much because I knew the dog is important to her, but I also was pretty upset because it cost me quite a bit to replace the damaged items. Fast forward to now, and Amy asked if she could bring her dog to my place again for another get-together. But this time, I politely told her that I wasn't comfortable with the dog coming this time because of what happened last time, and I don't want any more of my furniture being ruined. Well, when I said that, Amy got really upset and said that I was being insensitive to her mental health needs. She insisted that she needs the dog with her at all times and that I'm making her feel excluded by not allowing the dog. I suggested that she leave the dog at home for just a couple of hours or that we meet somewhere else, but she said I'm being unreasonable. And now some of our mutual friends are saying that I should let the dog come just to keep the peace, but I don't think it's fair that I should risk some more damage to my home. So am I the jerk for putting my foot down in the way that I did? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. If someone's gonna be over at your house with their dog, then they need to be able to keep that dog under control, whether it's an emotional support dog or not. Like seriously, the fact that Amy completely dismissed the fact that her dog destroyed your property and like completely ripped up your couch and your table, like that is so toxic and just so annoying. Like why should you have to put up with that a second time when you could easily meet up somewhere else that wouldn't involve your property getting destroyed by her dog? It also blows my mind that Amy's trying to frame this as some kind of like mental health offense of some kind, as if you putting a boundary down for her out of control dog is somehow a shot at her mental health needs. Like you did offer alternatives of you guys meeting up and having a get together. In fact, why not just have it at Amy's house? Like the way Amy's acting, in my opinion, is so annoying and just super manipulative. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because clearly she has very little concern for you or your property. Am I the jerk for moving in with my grandparents and telling my mom that I'm done supporting her after she practically neglected me pretty much my entire childhood? Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female, and my mom had me when I was 18 years old. My dad was just some guy that she hooked up with at college, and for years it was just the two of us. She didn't want to go back to her hometown so my grandparents could help us. She didn't even tell them about me for several years, and then used a 6-year-old me to break the news to them. Then, not only did she use me to break the news, but she had me ask them if we could stay there for a while, and she even coached me to do the puppy dog eyes and make it all good. And I did all of that because she asked me to and because I was 6. In fact, she had me lie about pretty much everything. When she wanted me to lie about my father, or when she wanted me to lie about where we'd lived before, I would do pretty much anything she would ask me to do. I followed her along eagerly for the most part when she was bouncing between guys and putting those relationships before me. I even shared a room with a random baby and a toddler when I was 8 years old because my mom's then boyfriend had only one extra room where his kids slept. I tried to speak up about wanting mom to focus more on me, and she figured out what I was going to say and gave me this guilt trip about needing to be put first, all because she had me so young and how she needed me to get on board. So I never tried again. Well, 4 years ago, she met her husband and dated him online when COVID kept everybody at home. They moved in together 3 years ago and got married 2 weeks after we moved in together. It was him, his 3 kids and mom, and then me. His kids spent some time with their mom, but they were with us a lot too. And I hated this honestly, but for my mom, I said nothing. She put more effort into his kids than she ever did to me, and it really stung a lot. They were younger, but so what? I was still her kid too. She treated me more like an older sister by burdening me with her issues and asking me for help with them. So I started spending more time with my grandparents and started to thrive. And then her husband's ex passed away, and my mom and her husband wanted to take in her other kids, which were different kids than the stepkids my mom already had, with my mom eventually telling me that they were adopting them all. Now at that point, I just sort of gave up, and I asked my grandparents if I could just live with them. There were some custody things still being worked out, so I was only living with those kids a couple of days. Well, my mom was shocked when I told her I wanted to stay with her parents, but she ended up letting me, thinking that this would be a temporary move. But she realized after more than a month that I'm serious. She has tried to get me to come and spend time with them and bond with the kids, and just to help out around the house, but I told her no. She said they'll be my official siblings in a year, and we need to give them a good life, but I still told her no again. They'll be her kids, and I won't be because she never treated me like hers. I told her that I don't want to give those kids a good life or to be their sister. I don't want to help her or her husband, and I don't want to put her first anymore. I told her that I'm done supporting her. My mom then started crying, and her husband cussed me out and accused me of cruelty and abandoning the family. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I think the way your mom is acting is completely selfish. She not only neglects you for a majority of your life, but then tries to turn around and be like, oh, come on, we gotta do this for the family. And it's like, what are you talking about? What family? You've done nothing to make me feel like I have a family, and if anything, you've turned your back on me entirely. Like, that's completely awful and so unfair for you. So no, I don't blame you for moving in with your grandparents, because the way your mom's been treating you is completely unfair. An entitled Karen claims that the entire park belongs to her, which according to her, gives her the right to let her dog run around and nearly bite me and my dog. Things got so bad that I ended up calling the police and reporting this lady for being absolutely insane. And now I really hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So this happened to me earlier this morning. I just moved to a new city less than a month ago and have been checking out the parks where dogs are required to be on leash. Now I have an older dog that's a little terrier, and he's been attacked in the past by larger dogs, so random dogs running up to him off leash really freaks him out. It also makes me a bit nervous because I was also attacked as a kid by a dog. I was bit in the face and I almost lost a cheek, and I had to have reconstructive surgery. But by and large, I love animals, especially dogs, because 9 times out of 10, a dog's bad behavior is because of the owner, so I don't blame the dog. So at a new on-leash park this morning, things are going fine until my dog and I walk over a rise and further down the trail about 25 yards, where I see this lady who has 2 dogs who are both off their leash. The little wiener dog is going nowhere fast, but the German Shepherd sees me and my dog and immediately bolts for us barking. I picked up my terrier and I get him lifted over my head by the time the German Shepherd reaches us. I've learned over the last 5 years of having him that this is the easier way to keep him calm. Her dog is now right there. It's growling and trying to jump up and get at my dog. I loudly told the woman to call off her dog, and she just stands there watching. Her dog makes another jumping lunge for mine, so I use my legs to push it away, and I yell that she needs to call off her dog. Well, this apparently pisses her off because she just completely lost it on me. This woman starts screaming at me, calling me a jerk, and told me to get out of her park and to stop kicking her dog. Now, for the record, I'm am not kicking the dog. I'm just using my legs to deflect her dog each time he tries to jump up at my dog that, by the way, I still have held over my head. I yelled at her again, "Call off your dog. If it bites, I will call the police." She called her dog off then, but it took a few attempts before it stopped. And at no point did this woman even move from where she was. She just stood there until her dog finally responded to her command and went back to her. As soon as she had him by the collar, she started cussing me out again, telling me to get out of her park. I then took off back to the parking area with my dog and I got him in the car. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, is it finally over? But no, this woman also comes into the parking area and starts loading her dogs into her car while continuing to scream at me how I've just completely ruined her day, reiterating that it's her park and that she can do whatever she wants. And she peppered in several swear words throughout her entire tirade. I took the opportunity to snap a picture of her and her license plate and Google the local non-emergency line and dial. This makes her then visibly angry, and she looks like she's gonna start coming across the parking area towards me until I start talking into the phone about how I'd like to make a report about an aggressive dog and a woman in the park. The entitled woman then proceeds to get into her car and leave in a hurry at that point, still cursing and swearing at me, which definitely helped confirm the validity of my call. Now, just to add in, I decided to call the non-emergency line because while her dog didn't bite me, her utter lack of concern and her behavior, coupled with her dog being aggressive, makes me worried that this won't be an isolated issue. The park in question has a large play area for children near the parking lot, and I would hate for this woman's entitlement to result in a child or someone else and their dog being harmed by her lack of desire to follow the clearly posted rules to keep the dogs on a leash. Now, I don't like the stereotype, but this woman is the epitome of entitled Karens. She was in her late 50s, she was white, she had that haircut, and she was driving a new green Kia Sport. But this Karen either needs to get back on her meds or start taking some, because the absolute conviction she kept screaming about the park being hers was completely off the charts. Yeah, that Karen was absolutely crazy. There's no way in the world that park belonged to her, and the fact that she wasn't calling off her dog right away was insane in my opinion. Like, what was she thinking? She clearly has a dog that's not well trained or has any kind of, I don't know, discipline in its life, and she's clearly not a good owner because the dog didn't come back right away. But also, that's a German Shepherd. They use those dogs for police dogs. Like, come on, man. She's got to be a better owner than just letting it run around and do whatever it wants. Like, the original poster had to hold their dog over their head just to avoid the German Shepherd. That's insane in my opinion, and honestly, there's just no good excuse. So hopefully this lady gets in trouble in some kind of way because her behavior was completely unhinged.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for not paying for a road that my neighbors were trying to build next to my land? Because even though they tried to say that I would pay for 1/3 of it, I put my foot down and I told them that no, I'm not going to pay for it, causing them to get upset and call me selfish and greedy. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the thing. A developer in our area went bust, and plots of land behind and next to my land were for sale for a pretty good price. So suddenly, I had new potential neighbors. One day, a guy appeared on my land, introduced himself, and told me that he had bought the land behind me, and asked if I would agree to allow them to build a road on the border of my land. As the person who owns the land next to me don't want to go in the middle of his land, but he would agree to have it on the border of our two lands, as he could also use the same road as his driveway. So I agreed, and I told him sure, but the only condition is that I can also use the road if I need to access that side of my land for whatever reason. So he has to do all the paperwork, and when everything is ready, we can make it official. We exchanged contacts and everything seemed to be great. A few days ago, I got an email with an attachment and with plans and everything else, and the cost for all of this was divided to 3, assuming that everyone, including me, would pay 1/3 of the cost. The future neighbor next to me replied that he would only cover part of the cost of what he would use, as he would only use about half of it. Well, I replied to his email by saying something like, "I'm really sorry if there was a misunderstanding, but I will not be paying for the road because I don't need that road. I will allow you to build a road with my only condition being that I get to use it if I need to." Well, this guy called me up and he was very mad at me, stating that I was selfish and greedy, and that I expected to use something that others built, and it would be so expensive for him. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. These people want to build their roads and they asked for permission and you said yes. Like, in no part of that conversation did it ever include you having to pay for a single thing. Because if that was the case, then they honestly should have brought that up in the beginning. Like, it's very dishonest for him to be like, okay, here's everything you need, and then suddenly you're finding out, oh wow, you're paying for 1/3 of this road. Like, no, I didn't agree to that. I'm definitely not going to do that. Your gift to them was allowing them to make the road in the first place, not be responsible for it by having to pay for a single cent consent, especially because it's not on your property. So no, if anything, your neighbor is definitely the jerk, because it really seems like he was trying to pull a fast one. Am I the jerk for not inviting my half-siblings to my wedding, who I have literally not seen in over 20 years? Because right now my dad is calling me selfish, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I are having a small wedding with only about 40 people attending, but with everybody who would be going, I did not invite my 3 half-siblings who live in another country on the guest list. I have never met one of them, and it's been over 20 years since I saw the other 2. At a meeting with my parents and in-laws to discuss the wedding, my father said that one of my brothers will be in my home country and that I should invite him to the wedding. I told him that my fiance and I did not include any of my half-siblings in the guest count, as we wanted to have a small and intimate wedding with people close to us. My dad then said that he was disappointed that I didn't at least invite my brother, who would be in the country at the time of the wedding. I told him, I'm sorry, but if I invite them, I'd have to invite their spouses and possibly their children. That's an additional cost for 8 people to an already tight wedding budget. Also, I wasn't invited to the weddings of my 2 married siblings, so I really didn't think that it would be a big deal. Well, when I said that, my dad got upset and said that if money was the issue, why didn't my fiance and I accept his offer to assist with wedding cost? He said that I was being selfish and that we are still family even though we didn't grow up together. So am I the jerk for not inviting them to my wedding? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, I definitely don't think you're the jerk, because you know what? This is your wedding day. You and your fiance decide who you want there and literally nobody else. You haven't talked to these people in what, 20 years? And suddenly your dad's like, oh, you've got to invite them. You have to have them involved in your wedding. And like, you pretty much said it best. Why should they be involved in your wedding when you weren't involved in theirs? That literally makes no sense, and there's no reason for you to reciprocate something you never got in the first place. So if you don't want them at your wedding, then that is honestly the end of it. Because trying to force something like that, especially on such a special day, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. An entitled lady screams at me at a stoplight, demanding that I change the color of my Ford Ranger simply because our cars had matching paint jobs, and she said that I was copying her. And I'm honestly still confused by this interaction, because the way this lady was acting was truly insane. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened at a stoplight a couple weeks ago, and it still makes me giggle. I drive a 2019 Ford Ranger in a color called Hot Chili Pepper Red. It's an orange and red color that turns out to be a candy coat of orange over red. It's one of their expensive upgrade colors that's pretty rare because nobody wants to pay an extra $750 for it. And as a side note, I didn't either. I just got a deal on the truck. I happened to pull up next to a new Bronco in the same color, and the lady driving was pretty excited. But it turns out her excitement was extremely pissed off because my truck was the same color as hers. According to her, it was a limited edition color that was exclusive to a certain package in the Bronco that year, and she said that I was copying her. She accused me of painting my truck to copy her car and actually demanded that I change it back. And she said this in a really screeching, high-pitched voice. Now, all of this was happening at a stoplight, and I just sat there watching this grown adult lose her ever-loving mind over the color of our cars. And it only later occurred to me that I really should have recorded the interaction. Now, given that there's around 10 to 12 different factory colors in a maker's entire lineup, I'm not sure how she thought that this was a color unique to her. I know the higher-end badges like Porsche will make a custom color for you, but this is Ford, the company that once offered cars in any color you like as long as it's black. So I feel like she's gonna have a lot of problems in life, because the way she reacted to my car being the same color as hers, honestly, is very weird. Yeah, that's a really strange thing to be upset about, because seriously, what is she mad over? People can have the same colored cars as somebody else, like that is not that unusual. And for her to jump to the assumption that, oh yeah, you're copying her and you need to change it back right now. And it makes me think like, what, like right now? Like in the middle of this stoplight right now? Or like, when do you want me to do that? So truly, I think some people are just born to try and complain about something in front of them. And this lady absolutely fits that description. Entitled bike riders in my city are making our lives a living nightmare by literally forcing people to walk on the grass as they have completely taken over the sidewalk. Here's what happened. I live near a busy street, and it does have a bike lane which seldom gets used. Bicyclists just use the sidewalk, and they will regularly run people onto the grass. Basically, if you're not using a bike, you're forced to walk in the grass next to the sidewalk, since the cyclists basically feel like it's theirs. Well, I was walking to work, and a bike rider decided that I wasn't moving fast enough. He then called me 2 names. He called me a fat pig and piggy. And you know what? I was really self-conscious most of the day because you kind of get to know locals, and I could get a customer complaint. So I was upset, and I wanted to call in sick because what if he shops at my store? I don't want my managers to know that I was being picked on just for my weight and size. This is such a common occurrence, and I don't want to be seen as entitled, but I might have to just walk in the bike lane since it might be safer. And I think that I might be entitled since I wasn't moving fast enough enough, and I was in the way. I just feel like maybe I shouldn't be commuting like this, and I don't want to quit my job and go somewhere further away. I wish there was some kind of alternative route. So am I entitled for thinking I could use the sidewalk, or should I just use the bike lane? I mean, literally, no one uses the bike lane. Are the bike riders being entitled for forcing people to walk on the grass? I'm honestly just so scared of getting hit by cars, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not entitled, and you're definitely not the jerk. The sidewalk is definitely meant for people to walk on, and the fact that these bike riders are literally making people walk in the grass, in my opinion, is so inappropriate. And you know what? Next time someone says that to you, you shouldn't feel bad about yourself in the slightest. You did literally nothing wrong because they're the ones with a problem, not you. You're just minding your own business trying to get to work. And I know if I was in your shoes and someone called me a fat pig or piggy, I would be saying something back right away, like that is not gonna fly in my book for a second. You can't just disrespect someone like that, especially when that person literally didn't do anything wrong. So no, in my opinion, I think you should absolutely continue to walk on the sidewalk to work because that's literally where you're supposed to be. And if these bike riders don't like that, then they can go back to the bike lane, which is exactly where they're supposed to be in the first place. An entitled coworker gets exposed for not being an actual engineer after he freaks out on another coworker. And I'm honestly still baffled that this guy got hired in the first place, and I'm really glad that this guy ended up getting fired. Here's what happened. So this happened at work last year, and I wanted to share it. So I work for a big tech company as a building maintenance tech. I do repairs, handle contracts, move office furniture, all sorts of things. But most of my coworkers are tech types with engineering degrees. Some of them are nice, down-to-earth kind of people, but many of them let their importance get to their heads. And the guy that I'm about to describe absolutely takes the cake. So we had a very, very nice desk set aside in an empty office. It was meant to be moved into the office of one of our bigwigs, but she was out of town for a few months, so we were storing it until we had her input on what she wanted removed to make room for it. Well, this low-level new hire engineer decided to set up shop in the spare room that we were keeping the desk in. He was told that as long as his supervisor was okay with it, he could stay, but that we would be coming to get the desk any day and to please not get attached. Well, the day comes to move the desk, and this guy lost his mind. He was pissed off, yelling that he deserved that desk. He was an engineer, and how dare we? My team just kind of shrugged and took the desk anyways, so he turned his rage onto the poor front desk guy for some reason and just went off. Well, the front desk guy doesn't take crap from anyone, and got this guy's supervisor and HR involved, which opened up an investigation into Mr. Big Shot Engineer himself. And you know what they found? He lied on his resume. He was in no way qualified for his position. I guess a fresh set of eyes saw some kind of red flag that the hiring manager hadn't. So yeah, he was promptly fired. And it's amazing that he almost got away with it and decided to blow up over a stupid desk that he definitely did not deserve. Okay, this story is crazy to me because how do you get a job as an engineer if you're not an engineer? That hiring manager sucks at their job. Like, holy crap, that is crazy to me. Like, sure, the way he reacted after having the desk taken away and him bragging about being an engineer was all like really kind of weird as it is. But the fact that he even got hired in the first place is like blowing my mind right now. So yeah, his attitude was very wrong, and it's probably a really good thing that he ended up getting fired. An entitled Karen gets her iPad stolen and then decides that it should be everybody else's problem, as she had a meltdown in a way that I've never seen before in my life. Here's what happened. So I work as an administrator in an elementary school, and last Monday morning, a very agitated coworker came asking for help. Apparently, someone broke into a mother's car and stole her iPad while she was dropping her kids off, and that's really bad. Only I have access to the surveillance footage, so of course I agreed to help. I only need to know which car it was and where it was parked. So we both went out to look for the mom so that we could ask her for this information. And when we find her, she was yelling at a group of teachers, demanding to see the camera footage and saying that she knew this school was horrible and just full of thieves. She was so upset she didn't want to talk to me and just left in a rage. And to be perfectly honest, I thought this was very understandable. I went over to her kid's teacher to ask exactly how it happened, and then everything turned really awkward. Apparently, the mom's car wasn't in our parking lot when it happened, and she decided to leave it on the street so that she could save time. She also left her car unlocked, and the iPad itself was in the passenger seat in a bright pink case. And to top it all off, she never activated the Find Me feature on the iPad. Now, because this wasn't in the school grounds, there was no clear camera footage. The best that I could find was her car in the distance with passing traffic blocking the view. I watched the whole 10 minutes, starting from where they got off the car to when she realized the iPad wasn't there anymore and came storming back. I saw several people pass by during that time, but at no point could the actual theft be seen in the first place. I did notice a blurry man take a longer time than everyone else walking by her car, so we pointed this out when we sent her the footage. Well, the mom was pissed. She said the footage was useless since she couldn't even see who the man was or where he was heading, but sadly there was nothing else that we could do. She then threw a big fuss and even put a bad Google review claiming that this school covers up for thieves, and apparently she wanted us to pay for the damages. Thankfully, it's been a week now and she has finally calmed down, but I'm just baffled at the entitlement of wanting everyone else to pay for her ridiculous mistakes. Yeah, that's such a weird way to act because literally that is nobody's fault except for hers. She left her car on the street and she's the one that let it basically get stolen out of her car. Like, how's that the school's fault? She's a complete moron for being like, oh, you're trying to cover up for thieves. And it's like, okay, but if you didn't have your iPad and a pink cover on your passenger seat, then maybe someone wouldn't have stolen it. Like, she literally put a target on her back and then tried to blame everybody else for it. Like, that's so weird, it's not even funny. So yeah, that lady was completely out of line and her attitude was completely unacceptable. An entitled Karen expects me to organize and basically pay for her entire charity that she's trying to run, claiming that because I already do this pretty much on a regular basis, I should be good to do it for her as well. And I'm honestly still blown away by her entitlement. Here's what happened. Okay, so years ago, I taught Zumba classes. When there was a tragedy or someone was in need, often a bunch of instructors from around town would get together and do a Zumbathon to raise money. I used to co-teach at a church and the classes were very well attended, like 2 classes per night, twice a week, with roughly 150 people per class. Every once in a while, the church would ask us to do a fundraiser, and we usually just announced ahead of time that we were donating that night's receipts to the church in case people wanted to contribute anything extra. Now, one woman called me because she was part of a walkathon or something like that, where you put a team together and the team raises money together to donate to the overall cause. She wanted me to donate the money that we earn from a regular class to give to her for her charity. Now, I explained that we were happy to do fundraisers for groups, but they would have to provide the venue and participate. We would promote their events in our classes and teach for free, but it was their event. Well, when I said that, she didn't like this at all. She figured since we do it for the church that hosted our classes, we should just do it for her too. I then pointed out to her that this was my job, and this is how I earn money to eat and pay my bills. She knew my co-instructor was a teacher, so she said that she talked to her since she had another job. I asked her if she had already asked everyone else that she knew to donate a day's wage to her cause, and she was not happy with me after I said that. And it honestly still astounds me that this person decided that the way to donate to her cause was to literally make someone else do all the work and sacrifice all of their time. Yeah, that lady was being super selfish and very entitled. The second you said this is your job should have been her cue to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, let me figure out a different venue or like a different option for my thing going on. The fact that she expected you to basically work for free and give your money to somebody else while also basically expecting you to organize the entire event was super entitled and so uncalled for. It also shows that she was not serious and just super lazy. She quite literally wanted you to do all the work. She wanted you to find a venue, to find pretty much everything that she would need, and it all came from such a place of like, oh, well, you're already doing this, so why don't you do this for me? And you know what? Now that I think about it, I'm even doubting if they were a charity in the first place. It kind of seems like they just saw a good way to make money fast, and they probably thought, oh yeah, these people will do it for me, I can take the money and run. But I really love your response to this lady, because it not only proved your point, but it also brought this idiot back to planet Earth. When you said to her, oh, did you ask someone else to give up their day's wage for your stupid cause? And of course she's not going to be happy about that, because that's basically what she was asking. She was asking you to give up your money to her without her doing any work. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair and super ridiculous. An entitled Karen demands that I break the rules at my job just so she can get her way with her and her stupid kids. Things got so bad that this entitled Karen literally threatened to get me in trouble, as well as write a bad review about me, all because I was doing my job. Here's what happened. So I work in what is essentially a huge play place for children. There are no age restrictions except for one single room, which is limited to children under the age of 3. It also requires them to be supervised by a member of their group age 16 or older, because we are just there to facilitate play and make sure everyone is being safe. We are not babysitters. Everyone, the staff included, is required to have their shoes off when they're in the room. We don't want any dirt or mud or anything being tracked into the room where lots of little kids are crawling around on the floor. Now, we deal with people being mildly annoyed over these rules on a pretty much regular basis, but typically they don't make a big thing out of it. Recently, a mom came up to the little entrance gate to the room with her 2 kids. One was younger than 3, and the other was very obviously at least 5 or 6 years old. Before I can even say hello, she is telling me and not asking me that her 5 or 6-year-old will be coming into the room regardless of the rules because she doesn't have anyone else who can watch him, and her younger child really wants to come in. Now, I politely politely attempted to explain that I cannot allow that, since we take the age rule very seriously due to past issues, and we can get written up for allowing bigger kids into the room. Well, this entitled Karen makes a huge show of groaning and rolling her eyes at me, and then tells the other child that he can go play somewhere else, while she and the other kid under 3 years old comes and plays in the room. Well, this required me to tell her that she cannot have her kids off on their own without her also present. And when I said this, she absolutely lost her mind on me. She said to me, "Every time we come here, I've always been allowed to bring my older child in here with me. No one's ever told us that was a rule before." And she went on and on. I explained to her that if that was true, then my coworkers have made a mistake, and I was fully expected to maintain the age limits on the room. She then gets angrier and angrier and ends up goading her youngest into a full-on crying meltdown by telling him, "This person is saying that you don't get to have fun. If he's not allowing us in, then we have to go straight home because I can't deal with both of you." It all wrapped up with both her kids crying as they're being shoved back into the stroller, and the mom storming off, swearing that she was going straight to our admissions desk to report me, and then she was going home to write a review. I asked around later, and I found out that she did go to the front desk to complain, and was apparently utterly livid when she was told that yes, it sounds like our employees did their job, as that room is exclusively for kids 3 years of age and under, and we do require that kids stay with their adults. But unfortunately, she still hasn't left a review though, as I was really looking forward to seeing my name mentioned in the post. Wow, you have to be seriously entitled to act like that in front of your kids. She not only worked those kids up to start crying as some kind of like manipulation tactic, in some desperate attempt that you'll give in to her weird demands. Because seriously, she was completely out of line. The fact that she wanted to bend and break the rules, in my opinion, shows that she's not a good mom, and she's just super disrespectful of those around her. And I just love the fact that she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you in trouble, I'm gonna leave a review, and I'm going to complain." But it's like, lady, the original poster literally did their job. They're trying to keep people safe and not get in trouble themselves. And it's also really good that the admissions desk was like, yeah, they did their job. Because I've worked in places where that doesn't happen, where they turn it right back on the employee themselves, and you basically get thrown under the bus for doing your job. So truly, I'm so glad that things worked out for you, and hopefully that lady never comes back ever again.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
An entitled jerk makes my coworker cry after he freaks out when he realized he missed a promotion that we were having. So I decided to step in and take over, putting this jerk in his place in a way that he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this situation happened quite a while ago. I'm working at a small mom and pop hardware store, and it was about 5 minutes before closing, and I was going through the closing routine of the store. But it's right as I'm doing that I hear what's going on in the distance. I hear someone scream, "What do you mean they're not answering?" Now, turning the corner is when I see a larger man yelling at the sales clerk. And this young lady was literally bawling her eyes out. So I walk up to my coworker, I get her attention, and I tell her to go ahead and clock out for the evening as I'm going to take care of this. Well, when I did this rude customer started screaming at me. He said to me, "Hey, where do you think she's going? I'm not done with her." But I responded by saying, "Yes, you are done with her. I'm taking over from here." The rude customer then says, "Oh, you're taking over, are you? What are you going to do about it?" And I just respond by saying, "Absolutely nothing. The credit card special promotion that you're complaining about is over." This customer then freaks out. He says to me, "What? No way, you piece of garbage. It says right here that you have until 5 o'clock p.m. I then say to him, "Yeah, in Eastern Standard Time. And we happen to be in Pacific Time. The credit card company's office that processes applications has been closed for 3 hours. And as a side note, I even had to explain to him what Eastern Standard Time meant. This rude guy then says to me, "So what are you going to do to fix this then?" I responded by saying, "Well, I told you I'm not going to do anything. What do you want me to do? Call an employee of that office to tell them to go back and process your application? If you think we're going to do that, then you've got to be kidding yourself. We are a hardware store, not a credit card processing company." This rude customer then says that he's not leaving until this is fixed. He goes on to say, "This is a public space. I have every right to be here." But I looked at him and said, "Yes, you are leaving as we are closing." And it was at this moment that my coworker walks by with her stuff to go home, and this rude customer decides to go back in on her. He says to her, "Hey, you little jerk, you really messed up." But I reminded him, "Hey, you're talking to me, not to her. And don't you dare talk to her like that. And as for a public space, that's the street. The sidewalk inside this building is private, meaning that we reserve the right to refuse business. Now get out because we're closed." And before this guy could even finish his next sentence, I said to him, "If you don't, there's a police station right across the street, and they'll be here in under a minute to trespass you and escort you out the building. So what's it gonna be?" This guy then looked looked at me incredibly angry and said to me, "Fine, I'm going, but I'm never shopping here ever again." And when he said that, I just smiled and waved at him. I said to him, "Okay, you have a good day, sir." A little later that evening, I called my coworker to see how she's doing, and thankfully she's doing just fine. She just needed a few minutes away from that guy, and I assure her that he will never come back to that store. I will ask him to leave and for her to not talk to him, and thankfully we haven't had any problems ever since. Okay, that guy's a complete moron because why would he act that way? I can't stand when customers come in and take it out on employees when special deals or special offers somehow expired without them knowing. Like, buddy, I am not the reason that expired, and I'm definitely not the person who put up that special in the first place. I'm just a worker literally trying to make rent. Like, what's your problem? And it's so telling that this guy's a massive coward because he would rather talk to the young lady that he made cry than someone who actually knew what they were doing and wasn't going to take that crap. Not to mention the fact that he tried to take one last shot at her and be like, "Oh wow, you messed up big time. This is your fault." But it's like, no buddy, this is your fault. You're the reason this all fell apart. So good for you for having your coworkers back, because this jerk absolutely needed to be put in his place. My entitled lazy sister refuses to take care of her dog and is constantly leaving me and my mom with the responsibility of taking care of a pet that she said she would care for. And I'm honestly so annoyed by this behavior that I seriously don't know what to do. So my sister is 25, but she still acts like she's 13. She assumes things will go her way and won't take responsibility when it backfires. You know that when she asks dad to go for a movie or eat out, she will try to get dad to pay for her meal or ticket, even if it was her idea. One time I asked which car I can drive, and my parents said that I should drive our Toyota. Well, she got mad at me when I took the car because apparently this car had a sticker going to an area that needs that sticker, and without that sticker you have to take a longer route to get where you're going, and apparently my father is supposed to tell me that I should ask all my siblings who's using the car before trying to use it myself. But the thing is that she did not ask my parents if she can use the car, and she never told my parents about the party she was planning to attend, which is what this is all about. She just assumed that people will ask her, and lo and behold, it all backfired, but she still doesn't see it as her fault. Well, last year my sister got a dog, and in my house we had 4 dogs, 3 toy poodles and 1 male Labrador. My dad did something for a friend, and the friend was super grateful, and in return he offered to give my family a dog, and my sister really wanted this female poodle. So now it's 5 dogs in the house. The thing is that my sister can now apparently have her dog breed with another poodle and make money from the breeding program. The dog was only 8 months old when we got her, but the problem is that my sister is a very poor owner and handler. She still goes out with her friends, and she assumes me and my brother can watch the dog. The dog almost broke my laptop by putting its paw on the screen and bringing it down, but my sister said, "Oh, you shouldn't have used it there." One time my parents went out one weekend because my dad's cousin had passed away, and my sister left for a party and did not tell me or my brother about babysitting her dog. She just assumed that I will sleep in my parents' room and will watch the Labrador and her dog in there. But you know what? I just left. And as a result, the poodle peed on my mom's carpet, and my brother sent a photo to my mom. My mom then got so mad at my sister and tried to talk it out when she returned from the funeral, but my sister just walked away from her, and it really pissed my mom off. Now, what I hate so much is that she goes out with friends and stays with them until 2 o'clock in the morning, but she also has this dog that she needs to take care of. And I did tell her that she can hang out with friends and her boyfriend, but can only do it for maybe a maximum of 3 hours. Like, I'm sorry, but your dog needs to be taken care of. But she still does not listen. She doesn't bother to get her dog outside or in mom's room when she returns. Well, the dog last month went into heat, and it was a long weekend in my country. My sister decided to go out for 4 days with her friends, and I did not know this until the day itself. In fact, I only knew when she left. So she just left and never told us how to handle her dog. In contrast, when my mom went out, she would tell the kids what to do if the dog got sick or anything like that. But with my sister, we got nothing. It was really hard controlling her heated dog while the Labrador was going crazy. I mean, my sister wasn't there, and my mom did not understand why she made her trip with her friends so long. It easily could have been 1 day only, but my sister went for 3 nights, and that is when my mom decided to have the dog neutered. She told my sister about it, but my sister said no, but my mom continued with the plan. Well, fast forward, and the female poodle got neutered last Friday, and when that happened, my sister went berserk on my mom and lashed out. The argument lasted for 2 hours, and my sister cried in her room for another 2 hours. She wanted that breeding program to happen, but my mom neutered her dog due to her being a lazy owner. My sister thinks that my mom doesn't want her to see her friends, but all my mom was trying to say is to minimize time with them because she has a dog to train. Anyways, I'm glad it happened to my sister because she is incredibly lazy. Okay. Okay, honestly, I think your mom made the best decision for that dog possible. Your sister is a lousy pet owner, and in my opinion, people like her should not be allowed to have pets. It is so inconsiderate that that dog is literally left by itself, and then you and your mom and the rest of your family is somehow expected to pick up the slack when you did not sign up for that. Like at that point, just give the dog back to the friend and be like, sorry, we can't take care of it. So hopefully your sister can grow up and do better as a person, because this kind of behavior is incredibly immature. Entitled customers made my time in customer service an absolute nightmare, and I'm seriously so glad I will never have to deal with these people ever again. So I've worked in customer service in some form for over a decade, and without fault, there's always the niche customer, the one who wants their order, their purchase, their whatever in a very specific manner. The weirdest were always in food service, and it is always the most left field request. If you get it right, they are always sweet as pie, kind as you could ever be. But if you get it wrong, then you definitely are in for it. Now, both of these stories are from my teenage years, so they are pretty old. When I was 16 years old, I worked at a fast food restaurant that is quite famous for its frozen treats. And through that job, there are two customers that still stick with me. The first was a man who I dealt with at least once a week in the drive-thru. He always ordered some kind of meal combo and a frozen dessert. He would order his meal by number and would order his frozen dessert, and as he left the speaker, in no more than a regular speaking voice, he would say to put the dessert in a bag. Now, the only bags we had were paper, and they're meant for burgers and fries and so on. They're not meant, however, for the sauce-covered meltable desserts. The lids that fit any given frozen treat were subpar at best, and after maybe 5 minutes, you would have ice cream leaking out the sides and a lovely chilled soup waiting for you. And I knew from seeing this customer every week for years that he would pick this up as his lunch before he would drive 45 minutes to an hour into the city for his evening shift at whatever job he worked at. But if you forgot the bag, no matter how kind and how sweet and apologetic, this guy would still freak out. I mean, God forbid he put the dessert in his own bag himself. I mean, this guy would be livid if you didn't do this for him. I remember this very prominent purple vein would bulge in his forehead like a cartoon. He would yell and question every possible aspect of our abilities to even do our job. Management would then be brought over and more apologies would be given. And even the occasional refund was given as well. And every time over a free and honestly quite useless paper bag that he always ended up getting anyways. Now, the second story is from the same time but with a different customer. While still working primarily, if not exclusively, the drive-thru, we had another niche semi-regular. Now, what made my location in a chain restaurant fairly unique was that we were pretty accommodating to requests for non-menu items. As long as we could charge you for the ingredients, we would make pretty much whatever you wanted. You want a pickle sundae with chocolate fudge? Sure, we can do that. And seriously, that even happened once. We had a regular that was somehow associated with another staff member. They were like their third cousin or little sister's coworker or something like that. And they would come in, usually in phases, with some new request of some kind. For a month straight, it would be a large sundae layered with very specific toppings to mirror a dessert that they saw on TV. Then it would switch to a new milkshake of whatever flavor combination that they could possibly think of. Now, granted, I will give it to the customer. They never complained about price before this incident. However, we figured out how to charge them. They would pay it so long as it was reasonable. But there was the usual confusion with the custom orders of how to charge them in the first place. Do we use this menu item as a base and charge them for the extra toppings? We were never really totally sure what to do. This all came to a head when they decided they wanted what they described as a deconstructed dessert, but it was in essence a cup of various candies we use as toppings, with ice cream being used as the topping. Think of how you get whipped cream on hot chocolate at the cafe. Now, my location actually did have a price for a cup of candy that we could charge for, but it was about double the cost of any dessert that this woman had gotten before just as the cup of candy, and the adding of sauce and ice cream. So imagine that maybe her regular dessert was like maybe $5 or $8, because in contrast, she was being charged about $16 for this, which was the best that we could do, even with asking the supervisor on duty. Now, did I mention if we had trouble ringing her in for these weird requests, or even, God forbid, messed up the layers of her stupidly complex and ever-changing sundae were dictated to be, she would then throw an absolute major fit. Think honking, refusing to leave the drive-thru, screaming for a manager. Like, this lady would lose it. Because I worked drive-thru so much, and I became quite good at interpreting her visions for the food, I ended up dealing with her a lot. In the rare shift that I wasn't placed in the drive-thru, they would call me over anyways just to deal with her because I understood what she wanted. I watched her make multiple trainees cry and was often the one called over to deal with her if they messed up an order. I even had supervisors texting me when I was at school asking me how I would make or charge charge what she was asking for. But anyways, back to the cup of candy monstrosity. As you can probably guess, she was outraged. How on earth could it be so expensive? Well, because you asked for the most expensive candy topping as the base, and you wanted it in this size. But it's basically what she wanted, but just deconstructed. So it's like, okay, based on the fact that you wanted it to be a majority of the candy, and expensive candy to boot, it is this flat price for a cup of candy. And then adding charge for sauce and ice cream. I mean, if you really wanted a truly deconstructed treat, you would get a cup of ice cream and maybe like 2 tablespoons of candy and a little pump of syrup that would barely fit a ketchup cup. But regardless of all of this, she just lost it. She screamed, she swore, she banged her fists on the steering wheel. She asked me how dare I do this to her, how she had been a loyal customer for years. She was so upset that it got to a point that I, the so-called champion of dealing with her, had to call over a manager. She demanded a refund for the item that she had not bought yet and continued to lose her mind, not to mention the fact that she's blocking the drive-thru. To make a long story short, she ended up getting banned. Maybe partially because if I wasn't dealing with her, she usually had her order refunded and given whatever she asked for free if we made any mistakes on it. But also, it might come down to the fact that she made so many employees cry. But I seriously think that mostly it was because I was the last person that they had that would be willing to deal with her entitled self. But in the end, she was banned and we didn't see her for quite some time. We heard from the employee that she was associated with that she had been going to other locations, but none of them were as accommodating as us for off-menu requests. And she apparently got banned from a number of other places for pulling the same stuff. Eventually, she started seeing her roommate and she would bring in a slip of paper and hand it to us. We knew it was this crazy woman's new order, but I, and I'm not sure how many others, would take it and charge it as we saw fit. We never heard another complaint, and I honestly feel bad for the roommate, as she got sent for food a lot, and she didn't seem to be treated well when I used to see her with a crazy woman. But thankfully, we didn't have any issues after that. Wow, I honestly know exactly what this person's talking about when they've had to deal with crazy customers who are just insane. Like, I've dealt with my fair share of like Karens and other people who are just irrational, and let me tell you something, nothing is ever good enough. Like, you can literally do everything right, and you can miss one singular detail, and then they will lose their mind. They freak out, they go crazy, and then it's all your fault. Like, it's not their fault that they have unreasonable demands. It's your fault that you didn't get it exactly the way they wanted it. So truly, I've seen both cases like this in my time in customer service, and people who act like this are seriously some of the worst people you will ever have to deal with. My entitled father-in-law suggested that he sees me as a green card for his son, as opposed to a valuable family member. And at this point, I feel so offended that I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I met my fiance 2 years ago, and for us, it's just instant love. He's Korean and I'm white, so we do have a bit of a cultural difference. Besides that, the only real problem that we have is that my fiance had to go back to South Korea to renew a visa, and sadly, he got denied. So we proceeded with the K1 fiance visa since we met all the requirements, and our immigration lawyer advised us it would be good for us. We got approved, and his interview is September 12th. Then he'll come back to New York in October. It's been really hard with the long distance, but luckily I got to visit him in Korea for 2.5 weeks. On a side note, his parents are very wealthy, and I love and respect his parents, but they get under my skin. During this trip, my father-in-law made comments about my diet and how I need to eat healthier. We only shared meals together a few times, and when we do, we all eat the same thing, but I just eat a smaller portion. I'm also 4'11" and I weigh about 118 pounds, but I was recently diagnosed with high blood pressure. My dad has it, so it's part of my genes. But my father-in-law doesn't get the part that it's genetics, and he's been making rude comments this whole time that I'm here. There's been other things that he said that just get under my skin, but I simply don't have the time to list them all. During lunch, he told me that he's so lucky that his son found me so that he has easy access to the United States. I was confused and I asked him what he meant, and he said, "It's so hard to get into the United States, but now because of you, he has full access to the US." So I just took it that his father sees me as an easy way for his son to get a green card, and it took a lot for me not to start crying at that moment. My father-in-law also went on a rant that I need to learn Korean and that he expects his grandchild to know Korean as well. While I understand that it is important, my fiance and I are not there yet. He also made rude comments about how my fiance had changed his major from aviation to data science, and I've been hearing those comments since last December. It's like they never tell his son any of this, but they tell me instead. He then once again went off by saying how much money they lost due to the career change, and I told him, okay, I get that you lost money, and I won't understand that, but I just want your son to do whatever makes him happy. But right now, I just don't know if I'm I'm being used for a green card. The love I have for my fiance is so unconditional, and I know how much he loves me. I can feel the love, and I never felt love like that before. But I'm really curious what other people think, because right now I really don't know what to do. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would tell my fiance what was just said to me. Like, your father-in-law is completely out of line, and that is so horrible to imply. I would express that to my fiance and be like, look, this is how your father-in-law is basically talking to me, and I don't like what's happening right now. But regardless, if you really do love your fiance, then I would ignore this man with everything you have in you, because clearly he's just some weird entitled jerk, and you do not need his weird behavior in the slightest. An entitled jerk follows me around as I deliver the mail, demanding that I confess that I'm the one who lost his package that he's looking forward to. But despite the fact that I had nothing to do with this stupid package, this guy refused to take no for an answer, escalating things in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, something that I simultaneously love and hate the most about being a rural mail carrier is that you are always alone. Well, this morning I received a call from a customer who said he never received a package that I had delivered yesterday. So I checked the shelves, looked up his tracking number, and saw that the package was scanned at the time I was at a stop. I then told him that I would look for his package today. Now, 90% of my route is comprised of CBU banks, and CBU stands for Cluster Box Unit. So was it possible that I accidentally misread the address on his package for a similar one in some kind of dyslexic moment? Yes, of course, I never rule out that possibility, but I know I have dyslexia. It's something I've dealt with since I was a grade schooler, and it's why I carefully read each address. Maybe a minute after I arrive at his stop, and halfway through the CBUs, a large black pickup truck pulls up directly behind my vehicle. Now, being a rural mail carrier, I rarely, if ever, see my customers face to face, but my instincts tell me that this is the guy I spoke with on the phone earlier this morning. Now, something to note here, as a contracted rural mail carrier, I drive my own personal vehicle and I don't wear a uniform. There is no way to tell from a distance that I'm a mail carrier, and there are no markings identifying my car as a mail carrier. I just look like any other hundreds of cars on the highway. This guy lives a mile and a half down the road from where his box is located, and there is no other way to get to his house and no alternate routes out from his road. Yet he pulled up right behind my vehicle from the highway, almost as if he was driving around looking for me. Now, having spent 7 years working retail, I immediately go into customer service mode and I ask him, "Hi there, how can I help you?" Well, this guy stands about a foot away from me and says, "I'm here to see about my package." Now, there's nothing wrong with that sentence itself, but there was just something sinister in his tone, and the way he held himself immediately made my skin crawl and put my nerves on edge. I told him that I wasn't done yet and I hadn't gotten to his stuff yet, but he continues to stand there unmoving, just staring me down. He doesn't go back to his truck until a kind old lady pulls up in her little car, but still he refuses to get back in his truck. Instead, he pretends to be busy with something on his phone, all while still watching my every move. As I was working, I was checking every box and paying attention to those who lived on his street or had similar house numbers as his. None of them had checked their mail since before yesterday, and none of them had received any parcels. After I finished up, I told him, "Your package isn't here." But at that moment, I get the feeling that he already knew that, and it was definitely in the way that he had spoken to me when he first got there. He then asked me with his arms crossed, staring down at me, "Well, what are you gonna do about it then?" So I tell him, "Nothing at the moment. We can wait and see if one of your neighbors mistakenly received it and turns it in, or you can just report it as missing." Now, I'm neurodivergent, and my tone during the entire interaction has been flat, neutral, and matter-of-fact. It's my default tone when I'm speaking, but this guy starts getting agitated. He said to me, "So you're not going to admit that you lost it?" And it's like, no, why would I? We don't know that it's lost. His neighbors haven't even checked their mail, and at this point, I'm 75% sure that he's lying, just so he can get a refund on whatever he purchased. The other 25% is either he lost it, or another member of the household checked the mail before he did and just didn't tell him about it. But thankfully for him, I don't speak these thoughts out loud. He kept pressing for me to admit that I was the one that lost his package, and he's following me as I walk around my vehicle and just refusing to leave. All the while, the kind old lady is still in her car, watching and listening to this all play out. His behavior has long since crossed the line into something that's not appropriate, and I tell him that I have not lost his package. He then says to me, "I've been standing over here minding my own business. I just want to know what you plan to do about my package." So I straight up tell him I'm not going to do anything about it. You can call the postmaster. Now please, just go about your day. Well, it's right then that he calls me a horrible name and then hops in his truck and slams the door as he speeds off. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that the lady was there for all of it, I'm certain he would have tried to escalate things even further. Wow, that is really scary, and I think the original poster is absolutely right. If that old lady wasn't there watching all of this go down, that guy absolutely would have tried to start a fight with you. you. Like, that is so crazy to me. There's just no good excuse for treating someone like that. And the fact that he was following you around and screaming at you about some mystery package that he probably lost, by the way, that is insane behavior, and I would never let that happen again without recording it. Like, this guy has nefarious intentions, and I think he would have fought you if that lady wasn't there. So hopefully you report this guy for being like really physically aggressive towards you, as well as following you around the neighborhood when you're just trying to do your job, because all of this was completely inappropriate.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for telling my roommate to go back home if she can't handle college after she's continuously whined about how hard college is? Because right now, she's spreading a rumor that I'm a bad roommate, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, let me start off by saying this. I have been called a rude person in the past, and I blurt out things that I think without thinking about if it would hurt in front of me. And over the years, I've gotten better at it though. This year, I made it to my dream college, and I come from an extremely low-income household. So I worked on scholarships, awards, and much more to get into this college. I took student loans out to afford the remaining of my tuition. Now, for my freshman year roommate, I didn't really try to find out if I could choose or anything like that, so I just went for someone random. And the girl I'm rooming with is quite the opposite of me. She comes from a highly rich and well-to-do family, and she acts like a brat. I've constantly seen her lock down or hide her expensive jewelry as if she believes I will steal it. She constantly talks about how she misses her home, as well as the amenities and the people. For the first week or so, I understood, because I was homesick as well. But then, into the third and fourth week, I would walk into the room to see her crying about how tough it is having to do everything by herself. She complains about the cost of Ubers and having to cook and clean for herself. And by the second month, I would walk in to see her whine so many times that finally I told her the truth. I said to her, don't come to college if you aren't prepared, because if you're not, then go back home. You don't need to whine about it so much when there's a very simple solution available to you. Well, after I said that, she was visibly upset and left the room. I barely ever see her in the room anymore, and it seems like she sleeps elsewhere, and at first I didn't really care because she didn't make it a big deal. Well, yesterday I asked a guy out in one of my classes. He is cute and sweet, and we usually talked a lot during class, and I wanted to pursue the relationship. But in the end, he rejected the offer politely and said that one of the reasons was that he was not interested, and also he heard that I was generally a rude person to my roommate. I texted my roommate to ask why she was talking about me being rude, and she said she was talking to her friends about something that made her upset. However, I know for a fact she isn't friends with the guy in my class, as he mentioned that he heard this from someone neither of us knew. So right now, I'm honestly pissed off, and I want to know if I'm the jerk, so I can consider apologizing if I am. What should I do? Yes, you are definitely the jerk here. First and foremost, your definition of someone being a brat is completely overblown, because it doesn't sound like this lady's spoiled or like bratty in any kind of way. She's homesick and she's not used to being at college. And also, her locking up her stuff doesn't mean that she thinks you're gonna steal it. It just means that she's trying to, like, I don't know, take care of her belongings. Like, you made a bunch of assumptions about her character, when in reality, I think you're just projecting. And it also sounds like you're just jealous of her financial situation with her family. And it's like, okay, but that's like not her fault. Being out in the world on your own for the first time, no matter how rich and privileged your family is just really stressful all around. And you lack so much empathy for your roommate. She's trying her best to adapt to college. That's not gonna happen overnight because, you know, she has emotions unlike you. And the whole reason why she's not sleeping in the dorm anymore is literally because you're a jerk. She doesn't feel safe there anymore. Like, if I had a roommate in college that talked to me like that, I would leave as well. Like, that is such an awful thing to do, and I just can't believe you would treat someone like that. And honestly, things got so much worse because the original poster even clarified that this is a foreign student. And it's like, come on, how can you not have some kind of sympathy for their situation? That would have been a good opportunity to step up and be a friend, or at least try to help her feel at home. But instead, you ostracized her and made her feel like garbage. And that, in my opinion, makes you sound like an awful human being. So yes, you are the jerk, and I think the bare minimum that you need to do is definitely apologize. Am I the jerk for not allowing my friend to spend the night after she had canceled her reservation at the hotel at the last moment? Because right now, I feel really guilty, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I have a friend that we will call Mia. She is staying in a different city, and she had planned to visit our town one weekend. She decided to spend the weekend with me, and I agreed and enjoyed her company at home. We had discussed all the details a few weeks in advance, and thus, I revised my schedule to accommodate her visit. However, on arrival, there were a few days from when she would have stayed at my place, and this is where the story takes a rather odd turn. Actually, a few days before, she was calling me to say that she had canceled her hotel reservation as she had read read about a better deal on a last-minute booking site, and she wanted to stay at my place instead, assuming that it would be more convenient and a lot easier on the pocket as well. She said that she would still come, but she had to stay an extra night because her new booking had shifted. Now, of course, I was a little surprised by this new plan. I had prepared my guest bedroom for her and rearranged the rest of my schedule to suit her original plans. After receiving some confirmation, however, I agreed to change and let her stay one more night too. Well, the day before she was due, Mia texted me and told me that her new hotel had a few issues and she would have to stay with me for 2 more nights. That way, she'd be staying at my place almost the entire week. And I worried because my house wasn't set up for long-term guests, and I had other commitments that I hadn't planned for anyways. Now, I had prepared myself only for the weekend trip and was not equipped with any provisions in terms of food, space, and so on, especially for such a long stay. So I told Mia that due to all of these limitations, I could not accommodate her for extra nights and may suggest to her that she might find some other place to spend the nights that she would be spending in the city. I told her I would help her find the adjacent place to stay or just to give her recommendations. Well, Mia replied exacerbated. She said it was not fair for me to change plans at the last minute and that I was acting like a poor sport. She mentioned she was in an awful situation and that I should have done better considering I had always agreed to host her. She also tossed in there the feeling of being let down and disappointed that I wasn't acting like the better friend while in town. After that, Mia hardly spoke to me and our communication deteriorated. I felt bad because she was upset, but somehow I also felt that I had been very clear with my limits and I did offer her solutions. It's making me think and it's raising a lot of questions. Did I really do wrong by not extending her stay when I had already accommodated so much on the shortened visit? Am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really sounds like Mia was trying to take advantage of your kindness. Like, it really does sound like you moved around your entire schedule to try and make this work for her, and she's turning around and acting like, oh my god, I can't believe you're changing plans last minute. But it's like, lady, are you kidding me right now? You've literally done that like what, twice now for the original poster? They scheduled you for a specific amount of time, and for you to be like, oh yeah, I need to stay what, 3 more days? That won't be a problem, right? But it's like, yes, that is going to be a problem. You can't just drop that on someone and expect them to be okay with it. So no, I do not think you're the jerk here, and I think the way that Mia was acting is incredibly immature. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not being comfortable with an older person in my class, as he is constantly bragging about being born in the 90s and is putting down anybody who disagrees with him in any kind of way? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm almost 25 years old, and recently I went back to a community college to get my life back on track. Most of my classmates are younger than me, which is to be expected, but there is this one guy who's 33 who was born in 1991, and he constantly brags about being a 90s kid. He comes to class late every single day with the same cringe excuse. He would just say that the 90s were so much better than this garbage. Whenever the class discusses mental health or current events, he'll just interrupt and call us woke or Gen Z garbage. He is also dismissive of anything related to pop culture. For example, when we talked about the upcoming Harry Potter reboot on HBO Max, he laughed at me for saying I grew up with the movies and books. He bragged that I was too young to experience them when they were first released. He also judges me for meeting friends outside of college, saying I'm gone past the age of going out for beers with a few mates, and I should be investing my time into more important things in life. And when we're trying to study or just do classwork, he would be blasting music from the 90s, namely hip-hop or early Eminem, or just watching YouTube videos while the rest of us are doing our assignments. If one of us asked him to turn it down or suggests he does work like the rest of us, he will just call you a stupid kid or Gen Z trash. He also rants about how this generation is too soft and needs to man up, and how today's movies and TV shows are all cringe, and just constantly comparing anything to the 90s, and how the 90s is always superior. Our teacher asked us to be nicer to him and understand that he's a lot older than everybody in the room. So I did, and I accepted him on social media, but his Instagram and WhatsApp is literally just 90s nostalgia on repeat, as well as football and memes. So am I the jerk for finding this guy very cringy and a massive nuisance? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk, and this guy's a moron for acting this way. In my personal opinion, no one in their right mind should ever be like, oh yeah, my generation is so much better than your generation. Especially if you're gonna use it in like a divisive tone, or they try to act like they're better than you based on the year that they were born. Like, I've seen people act that way, but then it's like, why are you doing that? No one's impressed by your weird anecdotes, and you're not making any friends around you, especially if you keep calling people stupid kids, while also saying, oh yeah, you guys are too soft, you need to man up. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for finding this guy annoying. And if I was in your shoes, I would be complaining to the professor and saying that this guy is interrupting my studies, because truly that's exactly what he's doing. Am I the jerk for calling out my cousin for being a terrible nurse and harming her patient in ways that she might not realize? Because right now my entire family is kind of against me on this, and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so every year, my extended family gets together and we have a family picnic. It is a lot of fun and we typically have a great time. However, it was very different this time around. My cousin, who's 32 years old, was in attendance, and typically whenever we see her, she likes to tell and rant about her job as she works as a nurse. And here's the story that she told this time around. A woman came into her hospital and needed an IV placed. The problem was that said patient was very needle phobic and let my cousin know ahead of time. The patient then proceeds to do coping mechanisms that she had learned, which was to close her eyes, take some deep breaths, and hold her sister's hand while also crying like a baby. Now, my cousin's opinion on the situation was that it was totally ridiculous, and she let her patient absolutely have it. In her words, she sternly told the patient to grow up and that her antics were ridiculous. The patient's sister then explained that she had a genuine phobia and to please be patient with her, but my cousin responded that it wasn't her job to deal with anybody's irrational fears and to not waste anybody else's time. My cousin placed the IV in while the patient was absolutely hysterical, with my cousin eventually leaving the room. Later, the patient's sister requested to not have my cousin as her nurse ever again. At some point, my cousin was confronted by the sister, who called her a nasty troll for talking to a patient in that way and berating somebody who was going through a hard time and was facing her fears. But my cousin doubled down and told her that if the patient's fear is that bad, then she would need to seek therapy for it and not waste everybody else's resources. Now, here's where I become very concerned. The patient's sister says that her sister has been doing cognitive behavioral therapy, and she's been doing this for a while to manage her phobia and her medical anxiety, and had been making some really good progress. But now the patient is refusing to seek future medical treatment and says that she would never open up about her fear ever again and is potentially regressing in her treatment, which she blamed my cousin for. Now, for some background, I'm a therapist and I specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy. Many of my patients have phobias and medical anxiety. I've seen firsthand how debilitating it all can be, and I've had a few patients in the past who've regressed because of traumatic moments, and it seems likely that this would happen to the patient in this story. Well, my cousin proclaimed that it was ridiculous for the patient's sister to claim that it's her fault for the patient regressing in her treatment. But I told my cousin that yes, it was kind of her fault. I told her that she chastised someone who was doing her best to overcome a struggle, and because of that, the patient would potentially never seek medical care again, or even be honest with her medical team. Well, after I said that, a lot of fighting ensued, and now some family members are on my cousin's side, saying that she was doing her job and that I made her feel bad, while others are on my side, saying that I was in the right and had the experience to call her out. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here at all. Your cousin is a massive jerk, and the fact that she's a nurse at a hospital and acting like this, in my opinion, is proof that she should not be in that profession. And you know what? If anybody knows what they're talking about in this situation, it would be you. So for people to seriously side with your cousin and be like, oh my god, I can't believe you would talk to her like that, that in my opinion is completely insane and so uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not putting my partner on the deed of my house? Because right now she is very upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I've been with my partner for 19 years. We have 2 kids together and we are unmarried. Now, for starters, I had a really awful childhood. Foreclosures, evictions, divorces, psycho stepdads, and a strung out mom. Ever since I was a little kid, literally since the age of 8, I dreamed of owning a home free and clear so I would never have to experience that kind of nightmare ever again. My partner had a lousy childhood too, although not quite a horror story like mine was. After graduation, she was buried in debt, and her degree didn't make her very employable, which is right around when we met, and she didn't think much or at all about real estate. By the time I was 25, I had bought 2 houses. I promptly lost them both in the 2008 market crash, and then in 2011, there was an unbelievable opportunity. I cashed out my $60,000 from my 401k retirement account, and I paid cash for an absolute dump downtown. I spent all the money from my retirement account to buy the house and fix it up, and when I ran out of money, I borrowed some more. Remodeling the house wasn't easy, and my partner was with me through all of this. She labored and worked, but it was always my money. When the house was finished, and we'd been living there for a few years, she got pregnant with our first kid. I stayed home to watch him during the day, and I worked at night. And eventually, the second kid came along. So for 9 years, I took care of the kids all day, and I worked in restaurants at night. We always split the household expenses 50-50, despite her making 3 times as much money as me. So she would give me the money, and I would pay for everything. Well, a little over a year ago, she started feeling dissatisfied with our relationship relationship. And so we separated, but not really. She is renting a house from a friend, and we're still spending a few nights a week together. We still have family time with the kids, and it's mostly the same as it's always been. Over the last 6 months, we've been doing some therapy. She's got so many resentments, and so many are super valid. But the only issue I can't see her way on is that she feels that she should own about half the house. And I just can't see how that's fair for me. I paid cash for it 13 years ago, all before we even had kids. I never exploited the situation, and I never charged her rent. It was never an issue, and she never mentioned wanting to be part owner of the house. I really want to reconcile with her, and I love her very much. It's just that I have no support network, no family to turn to, and no retirement savings. My house is worth rock bottom in my city, and I have a 7 and 9-year-old who really need me. The only stability in my life comes from owning my home. I just can't risk putting her on the deed and having her leave again. So am I the jerk for not wanting to do this? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You put all of your money into this. And sure, she did help out with like working on it and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, it was your money on the line. And in my opinion, unless you two get married or something like that, then I don't think it's a good idea to put her on the deed. My entitled sister demands that I hand over to her spoiled, rotten daughter a handmade doll that has very special sentimental value, claiming that I'm being selfish by withholding it from her daughter and that I need to learn to let go of the past and not hold on to such childish things. And now I'm very frustrated because after they left my house with my niece in tears that she didn't get what she wanted, I now feel like such a jerk and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So yesterday we had a big family gathering, which meant my older sister and her 6-year-old daughter would come over. For half the day, everything was well and good, and after lunch, my sister got tired, so I volunteered to look after my niece when my sister took a nap. Now, I have a collection of stuffed animals and 20-centimeter dolls, which I let my niece play with when her mother was napping. Eventually, my sister woke up and joined us, and we spent some more time together before she announced that it was time for them to leave. Now, this was when my niece pointed at the doll that I was holding and said that she liked him and that she wanted me to give him to her. Well, I told her that she could get any other doll or any other stuffed animal that she wanted from my collection, but just not this one. Well, when I told my niece no, she got really upset and started crying, saying that her birthday was coming up next week and that she wanted that doll as her birthday present. But again, I told her that I couldn't give it to her, explaining to her that this doll was very important to me. Now, I didn't tell my niece in detail about why it's important to me because she's still too young to understand, but I will explain it here to give a clearer picture. I've had this doll for a really long time now, all the way back in the darkest time of my life when nothing seemed to go right for me. During that time, I was advised to find an outlet, letting out my thoughts either in the form of writing or drawing, and one of my drawings was the design for the doll in this post. I spent a lot of time with it, shading it, coloring it, and all of that. Then I got the idea of turning the drawing into something physical. I searched and searched, and eventually I found someone that I trusted that could help me with this. For months on end, we worked together choosing the materials, fabrics, and threads to make my doll's body, hair, and eyes. I was so happy the day that I had him in my hands, and since then he has been my emotional support doll. I don't know if it's strange, but whenever I look at him, I just feel like I can overcome anything. So yes, he is very important to me. Well, my sister told me that maybe it was time for me to let him go. Again, I told them that I could give my niece any other doll or stuffed animal that she wanted, but this one is very special to me and she cannot have it. Well, when I said that, my niece cried harder and started screaming. My sister then told me that I was being an overgrown child and that I needed to act my age and stop clinging onto a toy. It eventually ended with her leaving with my still crying niece, telling me that I needed to prioritize my family over a doll. So right now, I'm very frustrated by this entire situation, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I absolutely understand where you're coming from. That doll is so much more than just a toy for some stupid brat to play with and then eventually throw away. It literally represents you overcoming one of the darkest times in your life. It's a symbol to you that you really can push through the hard things in your life, and you can overcome any challenge in front of you. And in my opinion, I find that beautiful. Like, I really think that is very special, and that's obviously something that you want to hold on to. You don't want to give it over to anybody else because honestly, it is not for anyone else to have. So for your sister to stand there and say, oh, you need to grow up, you're being an overgrown child, you need to think about your family, that is all not only incredibly hurtful and disgusting, but also it's completely baseless. She's only acting like that because you, probably for the first time in this kid's life, told her that she can't have something. You denied this spoiled brat something, and it literally could have been anything, and this is the only reason why your older sister is upset, because clearly her daughter gets whatever she wants, and there's no boundaries or any kind of, like, I don't know, discipline for this kid. And now she's just upset with you because she has to deal with her kid's temper
temper tantrum, all because she didn't get what she wants. And that, in my opinion, is the entire motivation behind why she was so nasty to you. Because ironically enough, everything she said to you literally could be turned around to her stupid, spoiled child. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and I think the way your sister acted was so inappropriate. But also, and I seriously mean this, if you want to keep that doll for the rest of your life, it is definitely time to hide it and lock it up somewhere where they can't get it. Because I can see this happening. I can see this getting swept under the rug for like 5 months. Everyone's supposedly over it and they just kind of let the situation go, yourself included. And then one day, your niece and probably your sister are both going to try and get that doll out of your house. And that really is an awful thing to assume, but based on their reaction, I would not put it past them. And it is such a shame that you have to make these kinds of assumptions, but the way your sister and your niece reacted to you saying no kind of leads me to believe that they absolutely would resort to thievery just to get whatever this stupid brat wants. So truly, I really hope you're able to protect your property, because I'm seriously convinced that your sister has nefarious intentions, and it would really be a shame if she snuck in there and stole it from you without you knowing.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for refusing to share my inheritance with my siblings, even though the both of them are struggling financially? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. My parents recently passed away unexpectedly and left behind a will. In the will, my parents left me the majority of their estate, including their house and some savings. My older siblings were left significantly less, but they were given a fair amount as well. The reasoning behind this, according to my parents, is that I've always been the one taking care of them, helping them out financially, and managing the house. My siblings, on the other hand, have pretty much been absent. They've always struggled with maintaining jobs, and I've bailed them out financially several times. My parents believed that I would use the inheritance responsibly, whereas with my siblings, they were not sure. Well, this is where things get really tricky. Both of my siblings are now in a financial crisis. They've come to me asking if I'd be willing to share more of my inheritance to help them out, as they're struggling with rent, and one of them has medical bills that they can't cover. They've accused me of being selfish and not doing the right thing, since apparently I have more than they do now. But the thing is, I've already helped them out so many times over the years, often at the cost of my own financial security. I feel like my parents left things this way for a reason, and I should honor their wishes. I've worked hard to get where I'm at, and I feel like constantly bailing out my siblings won't teach them to be more responsible. I'm not rolling in cash either. I'm still working hard to build my own life and my own future. Now, my siblings have been telling our extended family that I'm greedy and heartless for not sharing more of the inheritance, and a lot of them agree. I feel a lot of guilt, but I'm also frustrated because I don't think it's fair that I'm expected to keep rescuing them. So am I the jerk for refusing to share any more of my inheritance? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It seems like your parents knew what they were doing, and it's pretty obvious that you are clearly the responsible one of the family, and your other siblings are just not that reliable in the slightest. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would just follow your parents' wishes, because it really does sound like your siblings have had more than enough second chances, and in my opinion, it might be time for the both of them to stand on their own 2 feet. Am I the jerk for ordering a DNA test after I found out that my dad isn't actually my biological father? Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I've recently found out that my sister and I don't know who our biological father is. A few weeks ago, I was talking with my aunt, and we were a little bit tipsy, and she asked me when did I realize that my father, who we will call David, wasn't actually my biological father. Now, I was shocked to learn this, and I asked my twin if she knew about this, and she said to me that she's known about this for years, but thought that I knew as well. So I went around asking the family, and literally everybody knew except for me. I did feel a little upset that it took 20 years to realize, but it all just makes sense. My parents were married after my twin and I were born, and David, despite having nothing but love for all of us, did care for my other sisters just a little bit more. Now, it's important to note that I don't speak to my mother, and I haven't for several years now, so that was completely out of the question. So I decided to speak to David. David was very confused, as my mother said to him that she told us when we were little. He then apologized for keeping it a secret, but to him it doesn't matter. I am still his daughter, and he signed my birth certificate, and has been through everything for me. So basically, the story of how my twin and I came to be was from a drunken one-night stand, and then she started dating David a few weeks later. Now here comes the tricky part. Despite my family saying to leave it be, I went and ordered a DNA test to try and get some answers, because I just want to know who this man is. I don't want a relationship, and my respect for David hasn't changed, and I don't think it ever will. But if I know who this man is, it might help me figure out why I'm nothing like my family. So am I the jerk for ordering this DNA test? Because right now, I'm really not sure what to do. No, I do not think you're the jerk at all for wanting a DNA test for this. Like, for starters, this is massive news in your life, and you have have every right to know this information for yourself. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. And anyone who says that you might be crossing a line by looking up this man, in my opinion, is completely out of line. My family is surrounded by a bunch of obnoxious old people who constantly remind me and my family why they don't want us in their neighborhood. And after dealing with this for over 6 years, I seriously do not see an end in sight. Here's what happened. Okay, so ever since we moved in, our elderly neighbors have taken it upon themselves to inform us just how much they don't want us here. For a bit of context, we live at the very end of a cul-de-sac, and the surrounding houses, save one that has a young single dude working from home, are all occupied by very entitled old people. I have a large family of about 4 to 5 people living here, and we have lots of visiting cousins and friends, so there tends to be a lot of kids running around both inside and outside, which seems to anger my neighbors as they're supposedly being loud and disruptive. They really aren't, but leave it to these idiots to find whimsy and joy upsetting. There was one day where my mother was talking with an officer in the street, all because of an earlier disturbance, when her ex got belligerent after being broken up with, and a lady 2 houses away from us comes storming up the road pointing her geriatric finger at my mom, screaming about how we always cause such a disturbance and how we should have never moved in. And if there wasn't a literal officer standing right there, I fully believe this lady would have slapped her. And of course, she was sternly told to go home and quit screeching, to which she tried telling him that we should be fined or something because of how often we are so loud. He told her to leave again, and eventually she did. I have no idea why she thought it was smart to insert herself loudly into a police report that literally had nothing to do with her. Another time, we had a lot of family over, and I believe it was somebody's birthday, which meant a lot of kids under 10 were running freely around our yard while the adults were chatting and grilling around the porch. Also, our pit chow mix by the name of Roxy was laying in our yard. Well, our left side neighbor's ankle biter dog was off the leash it's usually on and came sprinting into our yard, and I believe towards one of my little cousins. Well, Roxy is extremely protective of the children in the family and was already chasing the dog out of the yard before the adults could even see what was happening. She nipped the dog's tail, but not at all hard enough to leave any damage. It was the lightest warning she could have possibly given. Well, cue the elderly ex-cop neighbor coming out of his house, brandishing his weapon, if you know what I mean, waving it around like an absolute idiot while yelling about putting our dog down and that she was dangerous. He kept saying that if our dog wanted to mess with his, he would aim right between the eyes, which is so stupid to do and to say in front of a bunch of kids, not to mention those kids' parents, but I digress. Now, Roxy is okay and still watches that little dog with her mean side eye every time she sees it, which is really funny. Now, on a lighter and pettier note, the last elderly neighbor has a beef with my Nana, who is also incredibly elderly. The tree on his property reaches over onto ours and leaves a bunch of leaves and sticks on our yard, which my Nana doesn't like. She asked him to trim his tree so it at least stops shedding onto our property, and he responded to this by excessively mowing his lawn. Every single day last summer, he would get out onto his riding mower shirtless and mow his lawn, sometimes doing an excessive amount of laps just to get some kind of point across. He has admitted to my Nana that he does it in spite of her because his mower is so loud. I don't understand this, because he's hardly got a lawn anymore. It's practically just dirt because it's mowed so low so many times. The problem is that my room is the closest to him, so I'm the one that really gets bothered by his excessive mowing. Closing my window helps, but seriously, he really needs a new mower. That can't be safe if it's that loud. Also, I don't need to wake up and see a shirtless, sweaty old man riding in my view. Well, it's been about 6 years later, and these people all still hate us, and I honestly don't see this getting any better anytime soon. Yeah, your neighbors are crazy. How can anyone in their right mind be upset about people moving into a neighborhood when they've literally done nothing to anybody else? Like, it seriously sounds like your family is just minding your own business on your own property. So for these elderly people to be like, wow, you're so rude and obnoxious, all while being rude and obnoxious themselves, it is so ironic it's not even funny. So hopefully these old people stay away from your property. And if they do, I really hope you have some kind of cameras, because these people sound absolutely obnoxious. An entitled old jerk tried to take my 6-month-old child out of my arms, as he felt that because my baby was smiling at him, he had every right to pick him up and hold him as he pleased. And I'm honestly still shocked by this interaction. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I were having a garage sale, during which an older white man stops by. I'm standing out front with my son in my arms on my left side, and my husband is sitting down, with my dad kind of in front of my husband, so he can't really stand up quickly without risking knocking into my dad. After looking around and not buying anything, this old guy comes up to where we were chatting with my dad, sees my son, and starts asking the tired yet very creepy questions. He would say stuff like, "How much for the baby?" And this is literally the third old person who said that today. Well, of course this old guy is directing this to my son, who upon hearing the word baby smiles at this man again, and this old geezer took it to mean that he could try and take him out of my arms. This guy reaches for my son, who, mind you, doesn't even consistently reach out for me or my husband yet, as he's barely 6 months old, so I angle him further away, and I try to laugh it off while saying something like, oh, he's not for sale. Well, this guy literally tries to reach out again, so I shift the baby thoroughly to my left hip, and I angle my body away from this guy so that he is only getting the right side of my body. My dad realizes what's happening after freezing for a moment and says, oh, he likes his mama, and my husband is staring daggers at this guy, but as there are other people in the garage browsing, he's trying to keep his cool. This old weirdo laughs it off and wanders back to his car, while my husband, my dad, and I all just ask each other if that really just happened. I've had older people touch his feet without permission before I could maneuver us away at stores, but this was so uncomfortable and far beyond that. My husband was finally able to stand up once my dad moved and immediately grab my son, telling him that mama kept him away from the stranger danger. But I still feel like I could have been more forceful. We were all pretty weirded out by that for a while, and even my older neighbor who had her own sale going on was incredibly shocked when we explained what happened, because what he did was so unacceptable, and he absolutely had no right to try and touch my son. Yeah, that is super inappropriate. You do not touch anybody's kids without their permission. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hold that baby because it smiled at me. And it's like, dude, babies will literally smile when they fart. Like, what are you doing? Just because you're old, it doesn't give you permission to act like a weirdo. But overall, I think you handled this really well, because that guy was literally incredibly creepy. An entitled customer treats me like garbage after I check them out, give them their check, and see how they're doing, because the resulting awkwardness of this guy's weird attitude was just not worth it. And I'm now reconsidering my entire job as a server, because this literally just doesn't seem worth it. Here's what happened. Okay, so tonight I had a table that was good throughout the whole meal, and everything went well, and it was pretty typical. They asked me for their check, and I checked them out. Then the guy went up to the bar and bought a drink and brought it back to the table, and they were just chilling with food in their boxes and everything else. Now, I thought it was kind of weird, because he did ask me for the check. So if he wanted a drink, then why not just order one at your table? But whatever, I really don't care about that, as I was just thinking to myself, okay, maybe they're just staying to drink a little bit. So I checked on them twice. You know, like a quick, everything good? Do you need anything? Stuff like that. And maybe it was twice too close together, but they were right by the kitchen, so I had to keep walking by them over and over again. The second time I checked on them, the guy says to me, do you want us to leave? You keep asking if we're okay, and we already paid. Now, I was shocked at this reaction, because he had not been like that all throughout the meal. So I said to him, no, and I said that with a clear attitude back to him. He then starts talking to the girl that's with him about me, but not directly to me. And I looked at her like, is he serious right now? And she's telling him that I'm just checking to see how they're doing. And then after that, I walked off and didn't say anything else to them. Also, to top off my night, I had 3 tables stiff me, which is the most I've ever encountered for a shift for me. So maybe my energy was off, because I was not feeling it tonight, and then that happened right at the beginning. But my coworkers were saying that they got stiffed an unusual amount as well. I'm serving right now because I was in a high-stress job where I took a lot of work home for me, so I wanted to step back from that for a while, but sometimes I wonder if that actually is lower stress, because the way I got treated tonight honestly was so unacceptable. Yeah, I remember working in like a server job or even like a busboy job back in the day, and I always hated it when people had this kind of attitude when you're just trying to check up on them. And it's one where they like to pretend like, oh yeah, you don't want me here, fine, I'll just leave. And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to check on you to see how your meal's going. It is not that deep, my man. So I definitely feel for the original poster, because I know exactly what this is like. And dealing with someone like that who treats you in this way is never a fun time. Am I the jerk for keeping my late wife's money set aside for our children, despite the fact that I have 2 new children in my life after getting married again? Because my new wife is demanding that I spend that money on our family. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I lost my late wife when our children were very young. She had money that was hers, and we had joint and separate finances. And anything that was her separate finances is being saved for our children. Now, where the question of this entire post comes in is that I have remarried, and I have a stepchild and another biological child with my present wife. And she was aware that I only considered this money for the children I had with my late wife only. But recently, she feels it's unfair because they have money set aside for the future that will at least help them get started after they turn 18, while we sometimes had to make sacrifices due to inflation. The latest thing was that my stepdaughter wanted to join these dance classes that would help her in her dream of professional dancing. Now, we could not afford these specific dance classes, and my wife was very upset with me. She wanted to do this so badly for my stepdaughter. And for those who will ask, the biological father is not in the picture and has also not been found. So yes, he can pay child support, and he has been searched for on more than one occasion, but my wife has no idea where her ex is. She wanted to know why there's money set aside for just 2 of the kids for their future, instead of using it now to make our lives easier? Well, I told her my late wife wanted this for them, and I believe the money should be spent on my children with my late wife anyways. I told her we still had a good life, we just didn't have all the luxuries. And just like a lot of families, we struggled when inflation hit, but we were still doing very good. My wife cannot access this money, by the way, and I know that will be asked, and I also have arrangements made in case something happens to me. My wife then said that we could pay for extracurriculars for all 4 kids out of the money and have that off of our minds, and then we could get back to saving. But again, I said no. She told me I'm acting like my late wife had left a will with instructions, which she definitely didn't, and she also accused me of treating my stepdaughter and my youngest child as if they are somehow less than deserving. I said the money is not mine. It was my late wife's and it will be our children's, and that my wife should stop treating it as anything else. Well, she responded by saying that I'm being very unreasonable. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Is there something that I'm missing in some kind of way? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all because I completely understand where you're coming from. First of all, I think you have it completely right. This money belongs to your late wife and I think you should save it for your kids. But also, I think it's incredibly inappropriate that your now current wife, even after knowing how you felt about the money that your late wife had, is treating you like garbage and basically being like, oh yeah, because you're saving that, you're basically saying that your new kids are not good enough. And it's like, wait a second, that is not what's happening here and that is absolutely not fair. She's putting the original poster in such a weird spot in my opinion, and that just completely shifts the narrative in a direction that is completely not accurate. Just because you're saving that money for your first set of kids doesn't mean that you can't do the same for your new set of kids. Like sure, that money's set aside when they're adults or something like that, but like who's to say you can't do that for the new 2 children you have in your lives? Like the way she's going about this really makes it seem like she's just being super selfish about it. She sees these extra dollars in this account and she's like, wait a second, why can't we spend it now? And that is incredibly inappropriate, especially since she knew your plans from the very beginning. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your wife is being really selfish, and this, in my opinion, is a subject that absolutely should not be entertained. My entitled selfish uncle is trying to claim that my house that I inherited from my grandfather actually belongs to him. He's even gone as far as doing construction on my house without my permission, simply because he's going to be renting it from me for 3 years, and he feels he's entitled to do whatever he wants to it. And I'm honestly so frustrated by this man that I really don't know what to do. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I was very close to my grandfather who passed away last year. He left me his entire estate, including the house after my grandma divorced him. Before he passed away, my grandma had asked him to let her son, who is my uncle, rent the house. So they set up a 3-year contract for $1,800 a month, and at the end of it, he could buy the house for $377,000. And this contract ends this November. After a lengthy probate process, the house is now officially in my name. My uncle asked if I'd extend the contract because of high interest rates, but I didn't want to because I'm hoping to buy my own house soon. My grandma pressured me, saying that it's family, so I reluctantly agreed to extend it for 3 more years. While I was waiting for a new contract to be drafted, my uncle asked if he could start construction on the house, and I said no. But then a friend of mine who was doing the work told me that my uncle had already started construction without my permission. So I went to check it out, and sure enough, major work had been done without any kind of permits. I confronted him, and he just denied it until I showed him photos. He then claimed that it was his house and that he could do to it whatever he wanted. Later, during a family holiday, my uncle and his girlfriend ambushed me, proposing a 5-year contract with lenient rent terms, no restrictions on construction, and permission to sublet. Well, I refused and said that I would have my lawyer draft the contract instead. During probate, my uncle and his girlfriend discussed what they would prefer contract-wise that left it more open-ended. I continuously listened to their wants. However, I told them in the end I would send them a contract drafted by my lawyer once the house was in my name. A few months later, my uncle, his girlfriend, and my grandmother sent me the 5-year contract they had proposed during the family holiday, and I just firmly declined. My grandmother then called and berated me for not signing it, claiming that if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have inherited anything from my grandfather. And at that point, I lost my temper. I said to her, "You've got to be kidding me." She then responded by saying, "Your grandpa would be disappointed in the way that you're talking to me right now." But I just replied back by saying, "Don't use my grandfather against me," and then I hung up. Well, since then, my grandma and my uncle have cut me off. I had my lawyer draft a new contract that basically stated it would be for 3 years, no subletting, and a clause requiring my approval for construction. And the rest of the original contract from my grandfather is the same. Well, now my uncle is saying he can only qualify for $350,000 instead of the $377,000 that he owes. And my family is actually pressuring me to accept the lower offer, accusing me of forcing him out. So am I the jerk for refusing his contract, insisting that he either pay the full amount, sign my contract, or move out? Because right now, the family pressure that I'm experiencing just for standing my ground is absolutely obnoxious. What should I do? Okay, first of all, your family is absolutely obnoxious. They're asking for way too much out of you, and they're crossing so many boundaries, it's not even funny. Like, your uncle literally started doing construction on this house without any permission from you. And for him to be like, oh, this is my house, like, that is crazy and so unacceptable. And everybody is so entitled around you about this stupid house. Part of me almost thinks like, okay, you got $350,000? Sure, that's more than enough. Take it and get out of my hair. But if I'm being completely honest, I think you should make them either pay the whole thing or just accept the modified 3-year contract that you spelled out. 5 years is a long time, and even 3 years is too long for me. But if I was in your shoes, I would want to keep the house. Like, if this house can be mine in 3 years and this guy doesn't have the money to pay for it, why would I not want to have it? You could use that to get a different house or just live there if you wanted to. And it's just so rich that everyone's like, come on, he's so close to the $377,000. But it's like, people, the difference we're talking about is like $27,000. That's not just some spare change sitting around. That's a lot of money. So I think it's a good idea that you're standing your ground, because the way your family's acting is incredibly obnoxious.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
I cheated on my husband with a person from my work, and I'm now in the process of figuring out how I can tell him what I did, because right now I feel so guilty, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I've been with my husband for the past 6 years, and we've been married for 3. I met him in our postgraduate program and fell in love. He is the most wonderful man and an amazing life partner. He does everything right. He cares for me through thick and thin. He was my rock when I battled depression. He makes sure of the little things and the big things. He gives me reassurance whenever I need them, and I need them very often. He tells me every day how lucky he is to have me, how much he loves me, and how much I make him happy. And trust me, I know the irony of the situation. We moved to a new country 7 to 8 months ago, and it's been a really rough time since then, dealing with the lack of a social circle, a new culture, no job, some financial struggles, etc. Now, I found a job, but he is still looking for one, and every time he would get rejected, it would be taxing for the both of us, and this entire process is really devastating. So now onto the cheating part. I met this 30-year-old male at work, and we talked for a bit as I was just trying to connect with people at the office and trying to make friends. And to be honest, I did have a crush on this person, and I told my husband about this crush as well. I told him that I will take care of it, but I didn't stop. I should have stopped talking to this person right then and there, but I didn't, and I realize it now. During one of the conversations, somehow we confessed that we find each other attractive, and that led to a 4-day conversation where we were sending pretty explicit messages, if you know what I mean. I felt nervous yet really excited the first day, and the second day I felt really guilty, but I just couldn't stop. I was also looking for any kind of traces of cheating on my husband's phone, and by the 3rd day, I don't really know why, but I just kept on going. By the 4th day, I felt awful, and I felt like I did something so horrible. So I spoke to this person, and I decided to end it right then and there, but I already broke my husband's trust, and he trusted in me blindly. I ruined our marriage, and we built it with so much love. I ruined everything, and this was all just a month ago. Since then, I have gone through different phases. Phase 1 is that I will just keep this hidden for my entire life, and phase 2 is that I will try to find any proofs of when my husband may have cheated in the past, but I came up empty-handed because he didn't. Phase 3 brought about the guilt. Every waking moment, I feel like garbage, and how he deserves so much better than me. He told me again today that he hasn't ever been lucky in his life except with me, but I messed him over here as well. He didn't deserve this. He needs to know what his dear wife did to him. He has the right to decide what he wants to do after what I did to him. I want to tell him. I've been wanting to for the past few days, and he can sense the sadness that I feel when I think of telling him, and he will even ask me if everything's okay. But he has some interviews, and if I tell him about me cheating on him, it will just absolutely destroy him, so I can't do it yet. So how do I even tell him about this? This will break him, and I do plan on going to therapy to work on myself, but I can't do that as we don't have enough money for that. Now, I really do love my husband, despite how hard it may be to believe. Do I wait until he gets a job, or do I tell him now? How do I even tell him about this? What should I do? Wow, this is literally devastating. Here you have somebody who is literally claiming, oh yeah, my husband's perfect. He loves me and takes care of me and does all these wonderful things. He's helped me through depression and all this other stuff, and I love him so much. And then she goes on to be like, okay, and by the way, I cheated on him. Like, what is going on right now? That is such a dichotomy here. You don't love this guy. If you loved him, you wouldn't have cheated. And I just love the fact that with people like this, they try to frame this as like, oh, I made a mistake. But it's like, no, no, that's not a mistake. What you did is literally a calculated decision. You made the choice to send those messages to that guy and entertain this conversation even further. Accidentally bumping into someone on the subway would be a mistake, or dropping something and breaking it on the ground, like that's a mistake. That's like an accident and you just didn't mean to do that and you try to like fix things from there. But this right here, this is not a mistake. This is you literally blowing up your marriage all because you wanted to have some fun for 4 days. Like, how is that the solution for what, 8 months of trouble? And I totally understand moving somewhere new and not knowing the culture or anybody around there, as well as having financial struggles. But where in your brain did you connect the bridge of like, okay, the only way I can fix this is by cheating on my husband? Like, that is crazy in my opinion. You do not deserve this guy at all. And for me, the icing on the cake is you looking for your husband cheating on you and then coming back empty-handed and being like, oh my gosh, I'm a piece of garbage. And it's like, yes, in this moment in your life, you are a horrible person. The fact that you did this to your husband is unbelievable. So you ask the question of when should you tell him? In my opinion, you should tell him like right away. Because I know if I had someone that I married and I loved and I said, oh yeah, I'm so lucky to have you, and they were doing this behind my back, I would lose my mind. I wouldn't want to be with that kind of person. Like, that's not fair for me, especially when I'm trying to find a job and I don't know, have a life. So sure, you didn't ask it, but I'm just gonna say that yes, you are the jerk here, and you definitely have an obligation to tell him the truth, because he does not deserve to be in a situation like this. I want to tell my strict mother about my secret boyfriend, but I'm worried about how she will react, as she has always been very weird about me having a relationship. Because right now I'm at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I really want to tell my mom about my boyfriend. I feel like it would be beneficial, not just for me, but for her as well. Whenever we hang out, I have to lie about where I am, making up excuses just to spend time with him. Sometimes I wonder if something were to happen to me, how would they even know the truth? It's also affecting our relationship because we can't do normal couple activities without me having to come up with a believable lie for my outings. I don't want to keep making up stories behind their backs. I want to come out and tell them, but it feels almost impossible. For reference, I'm a 19-year-old female and my boyfriend is 23. We met while we used to work together, and when we wanted to start seeing each other outside of work, I would lie and say I was going to school on Saturdays just to be with him. I used to go to school on Saturdays, so it seemed like a reasonable and believable excuse. When my mom was looking for someone to teach me how to drive, I introduced her to him, but only as a guy from work who was getting paid to teach me. The money she paid him for my driving lessons, he would just give back to me, and he taught me how to drive for free. And this also gave us time to hang out outside of work. Now, at first, my mom wasn't fond of him. She just saw him as the guy who offered to teach me how to drive at a cheap price. She would always warn me that while he was teaching me, it would be strictly professional, with nothing more going on. Sometimes she questioned my progress, saying to me, "You've been learning to drive for a whole month, but you're not showing much improvement." And she would even try to say, "Hopefully you're not doing anything else with this guy but driving." And the truth is, we often use our driving lesson as an excuse to go on dates and make out instead. She's always suspected that I might be seeing someone, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. For example, on Valentine's Day, I said I was at school when I was actually at the movies with him. He got me flowers, and since he is my first boyfriend, I wanted to try and keep them. But looking back, I should have just admired them and thrown them away before going home because it caused so much conflict. She was suspicious and asked me who gave me the flowers, and I just lied and said some guy at school who was really into me gave them to me, and I only took them because I wanted to take pictures with them. But she just wasn't buying it this time. She was pissed off, I could tell, but she couldn't fully accuse me of anything. She just kept saying, "You think I'm stupid, don't you?" After she calmed down a bit, I decided to tell her another secret I was hiding to cover up the bigger lie. I thought the best thing to do was to reveal a smaller secret to distract her from the bigger one. So I told her I had something to tell her, and her first guess was to say, "You have a boyfriend, don't you?" To which I replied by saying, "Why do you always have to think it's that?" I then revealed that I had my septum piercing, which is something she was against. She was disappointed, but not as angry as I thought she would be, because it wasn't as bad as what she expected. And this has been going on for quite a while now. And now that I know how to drive, she thinks that I've stopped seeing him. After all, why would I still be in contact with him if it wasn't for driving lessons? If I were to suddenly introduce him as my boyfriend, especially since she's suspected it once or twice before, it would seem like a plot twist. She would feel betrayed and think I tricked her and played her right under her nose. So seriously, how do I make this possible and acceptable? I really like him, and I want my mom to know about his role in my life. She doesn't have to fully accept him as if we're getting engaged tomorrow, but at least know the truth. I'm tired of the lies stacking up onto more lies, but I'm struggling to find a way to tell her without all of this turning into an absolute disaster. I wish I could just tell her, and I wish it was so easy to just tell her some things that I've always wanted to talk to my mom about. But honestly, I can't do it, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I think you need to understand that you are definitely an adult now. You're 19 years old and you can have a boyfriend if you want one. Like, I can understand that your mom is like super strict and really weird, but at least from my perspective, I think you will feel so much better about all of this if it's just out in the open. And don't get me wrong, you should definitely do what's best for you, because you know your mom way better than anybody else that could possibly like read your story. But from my end, I think it might be a good idea to like say something and be like, yeah, I have this boyfriend. Because what you're describing sounds like a nightmare. You have to like lie constantly and make up excuses just to spend time with this guy that means a lot to you. So hopefully whatever you decide to do goes well, because what you're describing right now sounds absolutely obnoxious. Am I the jerk for demanding money back from my mother-in-law after she scammed my husband by using our 4-year-old son just to get some cash? Because right now I am very pissed off, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm married to my husband who has a very manipulative and selfish mother. She constantly asks us for money, and we unfortunately give it to her because she always has some kind of sob story. She needs it for cigarettes, car payments for a car she hasn't driven in 2 years, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. Well, today was the final straw when she involved my 4-year-old son. She made my husband drive 1 hour to her house to pick her up to come all the way back to our house to visit my son. But then she made up this whole story about how she suddenly can't go anymore because she doesn't have a ride back. Now, my husband said he would drive her back, as he always does that anyways, but oddly enough, she said no. Mind you, she does have a boyfriend of 25 years that she lives with, and he also works and has a job. She said my husband needs to turn around and leave back to our house without her, and she will not be seeing our son today. And on his way out, she begs him for $200 so she can buy a birthday present for my son. She also begged him not to tell me about it. Well, obviously he told me, and I am so pissed off that she seriously tried to get him to keep this from me when it is literally our money. Now, he did give it to her because he always falls for her sob stories and her constant BS. She swears that she will pay it back on October 1st when she gets her government check, but she definitely won't do it because she never paid back a penny of the thousands of borrowed dollars we gave her over the years. And this is just something that she is known for, and I'm sick of it. She pretended as if she wanted to see my son. She made my husband spend over 2 hours of his day off driving when he could have just been relaxing with us, and then she tried to get him to lie to me, which just really set me off more than ever. I told my husband she has until October 1st to give it back to us, because otherwise I'm gonna call her, demand it back, and curse her out. And despite the fact that I will be blocking her permanently, my husband actually said that's a crazy plan and I just need to leave it alone. So seriously, am I at fault in this situation? What should I do? Okay, first of all, you are definitely not the jerk wanting your money back, because your mother-in-law sounds insane. She literally scammed your husband, and she scammed you as well in the process by getting that money from him. And the fact that this is not an isolated incident, and that this keeps happening, in my opinion, really points the problem straight at your husband. Like, this guy might as well be a doormat with money coming out of him. He just lets his mom walk literally all over him all the time. He doesn't have any say in the matter, and he's just like, no, it's fine, just let it go, leave it alone. And it's like, no, you cannot be serious right now. This lady is taking advantage of you. You can't possibly be sitting there and being like, oh, it's fine, she needs the money, because that is clearly not the case. So no, you are not in the wrong in the slightest, and I think you are well within your right to demand your money back. Am I the jerk for refusing to move out, even though my roommate is 7 months pregnant and is demanding that I get out of the house so that her family can have space to live? Here's what happened. Okay, so last week, my roommate, who we will call Becca, found out that she's not only pregnant, but 7 months along. She texted me that we had to talk today, and I assumed that she would be moving out soon so that she can have more space for when the baby comes in. Now, for a bit of context, I'm on a terrible salary, and I cannot afford anywhere else to live. So with that in mind, she wants me to move out right now so she can prepare for the baby. Even if I wanted to move out right now, the apartment rentals in my area are either too expensive or they are well below living standards, so I don't want to move. She went absolutely crazy the moment I told her I wouldn't move out, because according to her, I'm ruining her motherhood experience by not letting her family live together. Now, I pay rent here, and my name is on the lease until at least the end of the year. I'm not going to pull out of the lease, and I told her that if she wants her little family together, then she should be the one to move out, and I will find someone to split the rent with. Well, that made her start crying and saying how I just wanted to ruin her life, to the point that her baby daddy had to console her and tell me to get out of their way already. And I've not heard her stop crying ever since, but I think I'm totally valid that I don't want to leave. So am I the jerk for not wanting to move out? What should I do? No, this is not your problem at all. You are definitely not the jerk for saying, I've got a lease until the end of the year, sorry, but I'm not going. Like, why should you move your entire life around all because your roommate got pregnant? Like, if anybody should move out to find a bigger place place, it should be her, because this is truly her problem and not yours. You're not the reason she got pregnant, and you're definitely not responsible for her future family and her child. Which, by the way, how does someone go 7 months without knowing they're pregnant? Like, that is super irresponsible and just so insane in my opinion. So no, I don't think you did anything wrong, and I think you are completely justified in saying that you do not want to move out. Am I the jerk for refusing to cancel child support from my sister after I had to become the guardian of her daughter that she was literally neglecting? Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old male, and I've been taking care of my sister's daughter for around 6 years. This all started when my sister got arrested for felony theft and substance charges. She's been a longtime addict. She's been a poor mother and a family manipulator. No one else in the family really stepped up, so I offered to take my niece in while my sister did some substance treatment to avoid jail time. From the very beginning, my niece, who was around 10 at the time, didn't want anything to do with her mom, and I thought that was odd, but over the first few months that I had her, my niece opened up about her mom treating her very poorly. So I sought a guardianship for my niece and told my sister that I would not willingly send my niece back to her unless my sister got off the substances and sorted her life out. Well, my sister initiated a legal fight with me to terminate the guardianship. I grew to love this kid like my own, and I didn't want to send her back to a bad environment. It cost me 6 figures over the course of a year and a half in legal fees, but eventually I won. I managed to marshal substantial evidence of my sister's ongoing substance problems, and the court relied upon a third party who basically reported favorably about my niece in my care and about my niece's negative view of her mother. At some point in the legal process, as I was shelling out 5-figure monthly legal bills, I learned that as my niece's guardian, I was entitled to child support. So I filled the forms to seek it, and I ended up winning that as well. Now, the state oversees the support award and is apparently pretty thorough in seeking it, garnishing paychecks and even bank accounts. But now, years later, I'm starting to get pressure from the other family to forgive the child support. I have family reaching out to me saying my sister is doing better and just cannot get ahead, having to give up portions of her paycheck every month. With back amounts, it's like $30,000 in back support that I am owed. Now, I don't really need it if I'm being really honest. I make a good living, and it's better than anyone else in my family. In all likelihood, my sister's debt will never be paid in full, but I don't want to let it go. I've started telling relatives, hey, listen, that's great that you want to help out my sister. Why don't you pay me the $30,000 in debt plus the present value of the award until my niece is 18? Only then will I forgive my sister's obligation. And my relatives have all been huffy at that response. My sister initiated a fight with me, knowing full and well that she was back on the substances, that she lied about it, and got caught in open court. It was all such a waste of a large amount of money in my prime years that I would have otherwise saved and set aside to retire on, or pay for my niece's education. And you know what? I'm still mad about it. And my sister can owe me it pretty much forever for all I care. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. That child support literally goes to the niece that she's neglecting. She's not taking care of her kid. She hasn't done anything to help out this child. So yes, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely demand child support payments. Like, are you kidding me right now? And it's honestly so disgusting that family would be like, wait, stop, you need to forgive her. She can't get ahead on her paychecks. It's like, are you kidding me right now? These people stood on the sidelines and idly did nothing about this and are now taking the side of the addict instead of, I don't know, the kid who was affected by it. Like, these child support payments go to this kid. And to that end, I love the way the original poster responded. They basically said, oh, you want to help her out? Okay, pay me the money then. Because suddenly these family members scatter like roaches the second they gotta actually, like, I don't know, do something about the situation. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all in this scenario, and I think that you're completely justified in everything that you're doing. An entitled Karen desperately tries to get me in trouble by making the false claim that I was trying to shoplift from the store. And even though I proved this lady wrong multiple times, she simply refused to take no for an answer, deciding instead to follow me around the store and try to prove to everybody that I was some kind of thief. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I had a light bulb that blew out in my home, and the inside of the light bulb looked black and smoky. So I unscrewed it and I brought it with me to the hardware store. And I did that because that's generally the best way to get the correct replacement for the light. In the area where the shopping cart's undercover before you actually enter the store, I pulled it out of my purse and I set my purse in the cart. And then with the light bulb in my right hand, while pushing the cart by leaning on it with my forearms, I started slowly making my way through the store, figuring that I would see what fall decorations they had out, and if there was any random home decor or cleaning supplies, or some end-of-year barbecue sales items that I couldn't live without. After a while, I noticed a guy following me and trying to act all casual, and I really don't know why, but I'm pretty sure he was loss prevention. So, being the upfront person that I am, I flat out ask him, "Are you loss prevention?" And when I said that, he stammers and then admits it, and says that someone saw me shoplifting and putting something in my purse. Now, I am bemused more than anything else, so I point to my open bag, and I told him, "You can check, I don't care." And he sheepishly peeks inside, and then says something like, "Okay, you're good, sorry about that." And at this point, I can't help but ask myself. So I say to him, "What exactly did I steal?" He then says, "That lady down there," and he nodded towards the end of the aisle where an entitled Karen was parked staring at us. And that's when he explains that she said that she saw me open up a box and put a light bulb in my purse. Now, I couldn't really think of anything to say, so I just held out my burned out bulb, and I said, "I haven't even gotten over to look at the bulbs yet. I was shopping around here first. I brought this to make sure I got the right one." The loss prevention guy then rolls his eyes and said something like, "Oh, I get it. Do you need me to get anyone to help you find the product that you're looking for?" But I just responded by saying no, and I continued shopping from there. Well, this entitled Karen seemed to be very irritated that I wasn't arrested, or at least forced to dump out my bag, so she actually followed me around the store. Now, with the loss prevention guy, he was at least trying to be subtle, but this entitled Karen was not. She kept about 2 shopping cart lengths back and just stared at me, and I honestly just did the best that I could to ignore her. I would pick things up, read the packaging, and then put it back, and then she would pick it up after I moved on and inspect it, as if she would discover an empty box or something like that. Now, I was irritated, but I tracked down the bulb that I needed. I made a point of holding out my smoky and obviously burnt out light bulb right next to the fresh clean bulbs until I found what I wanted. But then I put that one back and I chose out the same light bulb but a different brand for slightly cheaper. I then went to check out, and while I waited in line, I saw her at customer service pointing at me urgently. So eventually someone came over and asked how my shopping went. So I just held up my open bag and I made a point of showing that it was completely empty since I had to pull my wallet out to pay. I stood like that, not saying anything, until the employee apologized and left. And you know what the worst part about this is? At the end of the day, I didn't even see this entitled Karen actually shopping in the first place, because clearly she thought I was a thief despite the fact that I definitely wasn't. Wow, talk about a busybody. This lady literally followed you around the store, all under this weird assumption that you were trying to, like, I don't know, rob the place or something like that. And I really find people who act this way to be so obnoxious and so unbearable to be around. Instead of just minding her own business, she's like literally going out of her way to try and get other people in trouble for stuff they didn't even do. But you know what? I love the way the original poster handled this, because they showed how stupid this lady truly was.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for not disclosing the fact that I'm adopted to my fiance's family? Because right now they feel very betrayed, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male and I was adopted as an infant, and this is a fact that I always knew. My parents never hid this from me or made it something shameful, but I also never like to talk about it with others. It normally opens up a lot of questions about my biological parents, or my real parents as someone would call them, or some people start talking about my parents like they're not really my parents. I had it happen when I was a lot younger and started school and told people my special story. So after we moved when I was 8 years old, I stopped talking about it and acted towards others like my parents are my biological parents. Now, I told my fiance when we first started dating, but apart from her and some very close friends, I never talk about it with anybody. To me, it's not something that anyone else needs to know about, and this includes my fiance's family. Well, as luck would have it, my adopted status was revealed to my fiance's family during a recent visit of theirs. I then got a knock on the door from a private investigator who informed me that my biological parents were interested in contact with me and they overheard the conversation. They then had a lot of questions, but primarily they were angry at me for 2 reasons. For starters, and most importantly for this post, because I just didn't tell them. They didn't like being kept in the dark and didn't like my fiance's response that it wasn't any of their business. Secondly, they were also mad because I expressed to the PI that I was not interested in any contact with them and asked him to pass this on to my biological parents. My fiance's family had the very reaction I try to avoid from people, and they asked how I could turn down the chance to know my real family. But the primary criticism is that I did not tell them, and that I let them find out in the way that they did. They said they could have had grandkids affected by this, and I just wouldn't tell them. My fiance reminded them that it was none of their business, and she had them leave early when they refused to let the topic go. But her parents are still pissed off at me, and it's making me question if I'm seriously the one at fault. What should I do? Okay, this is seriously insane because your fiance's family is so intrusive. First of all, that PI should not have knocked on your door to give you that information. Like, an email really would have been enough for this, so the timing for everything is just awful and just completely unfair. But also, your fiance's family is completely out of line. There is no reason in in the world they should ever know this information. This is quite literally none of their business, and for them to selfishly assume that this somehow affects them is just insane. And by the way, this would not affect any future grandkids. Like, this is not even a problem to begin with. Like, what is wrong with these people? So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because the way your extended family was acting is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my sister's wedding after she disrespected my late wife and also demanded a family heirloom that was given to my late wife? Because right now, I really do feel disrespected, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I lost my wife 2 years ago in a drunk driving accident. Losing her shattered my world, and I've been trying to pick up the pieces ever since. My family, though, has never really understood what I've been going through, and to be completely honest, they never fully accepted my marriage in the first place. And for the sake of the story, we'll call my late wife Lauren. When we got married, my grandma gave me a necklace that's been passed down in our family for generations. It's a tradition that the women in the family get it when they get married, and it meant the world to me because it felt like one of the few times that my marriage to Lauren was actually recognized as real. Since Lauren passed, my sister Emma, who's always been the golden child, has been eyeing the necklace. She's getting married soon, and she recently mentioned that now that I'm not really married anymore, I should pass it on to her. Now that was hard to hear, but what really broke me happened last week at a family dinner. We were talking about her wedding, and she made a joke about setting me up with one of her fiance's friends. I felt uncomfortable, but I tried to brush it off. She then says to me, "Well, at least Lauren won't be there to haunt you if you hook up with someone." And I seriously couldn't believe that she said that. I didn't even know how to react. I just sat there. Later, when I told her how hurtful it was, she rolled her eyes at me and told me that I was being too sensitive and that I needed to stop being so depressing and lighten up. Then she brought up one of her bridesmaids who had a crush on me even when Lauren was alive and suggested that I have some fun with her at the wedding, if you know what I mean, as if my wife hadn't mattered at all. I told her there was no way I could come to the wedding if that's how she feels about Lauren and my grief. Things escalated from there, and she then accused me of being dramatic and said I was ruining her big day over one little joke. Well, my parents took her side, saying that I should just let it go and show up to support my sister. They even mentioned again how I should give Emma the family necklace, saying that since I'm not using it anymore, it should go to her now. Ever since then, I've been bombarded with calls from literally everybody. They've all told me that I'm being selfish and that I need to move on and stop holding on to the past. My sister's fiance even said that I should be grateful my family didn't disown me when I came out, as if I owe them something for barely tolerating me. Now I'm questioning everything. Am I being unreasonable for not wanting to go to her wedding after all this? Part of me wonders if I should just suck it up and go, but another part of me can't believe how little my family seems to care about Lauren or me for that matter. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Your family is so disrespectful to your wife's memory, it's not even funny. Are they really trying to say, oh yeah, you just need to let it go. You need to move on and stop holding on to the past. By the way, give me that family heirloom back. You're not gonna need it. Like, what is happening right now? This doesn't sound like family. This sounds like a bunch of bullies trying to push you around. They not only basically spit on the memory of your wife, but they also try to make it sound like you're the one with a problem, when in reality, your sister has just been so disrespectful. So in my opinion, I don't blame you for not wanting to go to the wedding or even wanting to give back that family heirloom. Because if this is how you're going to be treated, then I don't blame you in the slightest for not wanting to be involved. Am I the jerk for not doing a favor for my dad simply because of the way he's treating me and my siblings? Here's what happened. Okay, so after our mom passed away, my dad told me and my 3 other siblings that he was glad that part of his life was over and he was going to find someone he actually loved and wanted to be with, and we better be ready because he wasn't slowing down for us. And this was 10 years ago. He met a few women before his wife of 9 years. They were together a few months before they got married, and she was pregnant right away. My dad said he knew that she was the one, and he was finally in love, and also that mom was his biggest regret in life. Well, this would make my sister cry, which would annoy my dad, and he would say that we should want him to be happy when he sacrificed his own happiness for us. Now, here's the thing. He's a better dad to the kids he has with his wife. He's there on their birthdays, remembers to buy them gifts, takes them out for ice cream, or for some kind of special time with him. He comes home early to spend time with them before they go to bed and helps them with their homework. And he never did that with us, even after he started changing. My siblings really wanted him for the longest time, but I always knew he was an awful parent and that he wasn't going to change towards us. We also always fought, and he told me the 3 of us were born selfish, that we wanted him to be unhappy for our sakes. I told him he basically dumped his issues onto 3 grieving kids and didn't care in the slightest what that did to us. I reminded him that my brother was only 4 years old when he lost mom, and my dad's response was to say that if I cared so much about them, then I should care even more about my younger half-sibling. siblings. But I told him that I didn't, and I have told him that a few times ever since my first half-sibling was born. In truth, I never spend any time with my half-siblings or engage with them. It's just me, my brother, and my sister, and I put my time and love into them. My siblings have reached out to Dad and asked for him to love them and spend time with them, but his focus is on the family that he wants, which is his favorite family as I think of them, and I definitely don't think of them as mine. Dad's wife and one of his favorite kids had birthdays a day apart. His gift for one was delayed or late or whatever, and he wasn't going to pick both of them up on time. So he asked me to do him a favor and pick one gift up while he picked up the other, and I just said no. But he told me that I could do a favor for him since he's my dad and all this other stuff. But again, I said no. The day came and went and I didn't get it, and he freaked out and told me that I was going to ruin the birthday. He told me again that I could have done a favor for him as we're all family, but I told him I don't owe him or his wife or his favorite kids any favors. I reminded him that he owed his kids being a good dad, and he wasn't to three of us, so I'm not going to save his butt or do something that makes his favorite family happy because innocent or not, they are not my problem. Well, he said that I'm such a child, and then he got my uncle to say how disappointed he was that I acted so petty. So with all things considered, am I the jerk for not doing a favor for my dad? Because right now, I'm still very angry. No, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, because it sounds like your dad has basically walked out on his original family. Him saying that his wife was like the biggest mistake he's ever made in his life is not only incredibly gross, but also a horrible thing to say, especially in front of your kids. Like, what is wrong with him? And then for him to basically get like a do-over family and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do things right this time, where he actually like shows up for these kids and like shows them love and attention that you should have gotten. Like, that is awful and so inappropriate. And I know if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't want to do any favors for my dad. He basically said he doesn't love me as much as his new family, and that is so insulting. Like, that's an awful thing to say. That would make me feel like garbage. Like, what is going on? So honestly, I think you would agree in saying that your dad is an absolute jerk for the way he's acting, because you and your siblings do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my best friend's fiance propose at my wedding? Because right now, after I said no, they're acting like I ruined their special day, despite the fact that it was my wedding and I didn't want them doing that. Here's what happened. Okay, so I got married last month to the love of my life, and everything went off without a hitch except for one awkward moment. A week before the wedding, my best friend, who we will call Mary, asked if her fiance, who we will call Josh, could propose to her at my reception. Apparently, Josh thought it would be romantic and was convinced that it would make their moment more special. Now, I love Mary, but the idea of having my wedding overshadowed by their proposal just didn't sit right with me. I politely said no and suggested that they have their own special day. Mary seemed a little disappointed, but she said that she understood. Well, on the day of the wedding, I noticed that Mary and Josh were acting very distant, and it was clear that something was off. I later found out that Josh was upset with me for ruining his plan and felt like I'd been selfish for not allowing them to share in the love for the day. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to let them have their proposal at my wedding? Or was I being selfish by not letting them make it a double celebration? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Never in a million years is it okay to propose at someone else's wedding. That is not only rude and inconsiderate, but it's also completely taking away from the real reason we're all there. And that would be to like celebrate the marriage that's happening right now. Like, that is such a selfish thing to do, and it's so unbelievably toxic for them to be like, wow, you ruined our plan. And it's like, man, I'm really glad they asked ahead of time, because clearly they were gonna like do it no matter what. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think it's awful that they even wanted to plan that in the first place. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that if she wants to give people second chances, then she should put her own neck on the line for once to see the consequences? Because right now, after being burned so many times by my sister's friends, I'm honestly sick of it, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister, who we will call Zoe, is nice to a fault. She gives others second chances, but she is too trusting with people that she gives second chances to, and it winds up having consequences for whichever family member Zoe convinces to stick their neck out for. For example, my grandparents were talking about needing a cleaner, and Zoe asked them to hire a friend who we will call Ash. After several months, my grandparents learned that Ash had been pocketing my grandma's jewelry, and Zoe had recommended Ash's cleaning services for our grandparents' friends as well, and now we suspect that she's stolen from them too. Zoe made an excuse that Ash was a good person, but that she had a bad home life and only took the jewelry because she's trying to get away from her parents. Well, my grandparents were not amused and said that Ash was lucky because that was the only reason they didn't report her. Later, Zoe recommended a friend by the name of Lily as a babysitter for our brother's son, who we will call Max. Now, according to Max, Lily was on her phone the entire entire time, and Max was on his own for dinner. Max claims that Lily was actually mean to him, and my nephew isn't the type to make something up like that. Well, Zoe made another excuse that Lily's boyfriend broke up with her, and she is a good person, but she's just having a hard time. And obviously, my brother was still very pissed off at Zoe for even recommending this friend. Zoe kept trying to push me to talk to him and agree that she was right, but eventually I got fed up. I told Zoe that I get how she likes to give people second chances, but no one she recommends is ever trustworthy, and she should try putting her own neck on the line so she'll get why we're so annoyed with taking the consequences of her kindness and then her coming and trying to make us agree that she did a good thing. After that, our parents reached out to me. They said they understood me and my brother being frustrated and that they would talk to Zoe about being naive, but she was trying to do a good deed and I should apologize to her because no matter the circumstance, it is a crummy thing to put down a person who had the best intentions. Now, one could argue that this is none of our parents' business, as we are all adults now, but our parents typically stay out of our business, and this is one of the only times our parents have gotten involved in any of our disagreements. So now, I'm torn between if I should apologize or if I should hold my ground. What should I do? No, I don't think you're at fault here, and in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with you standing your ground. Your sister has bad judgment. Like, there's no other way to look at this, and it's honestly really insulting, especially when she's like pushing you to talk to your brother and be like, can you convince him that I'm right? Because clearly she's not. She had one friend steal from your grandparents and another friend mistreat the kid they were supposed to watch. Like, Zoe is literally batting zero at this point, and I don't blame you for getting upset. So no, I don't think you would be the jerk for standing your ground, because this seriously has got to stop. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she said that my career isn't real work? Because right now I'm very upset and I don't know what to do. I'm a 26-year-old male and I work from home as a freelance graphic designer. It's a very flexible job and I can manage my own hours, but that doesn't mean that I'm not busy or hard at work. My 35-year-old sister has 3 kids, all under the age of 7, and is constantly asking me to babysit. At first, I didn't mind helping out occasionally, but lately it feels like she's taking advantage of me just because I'm at home. A few weeks ago, we were at a family dinner, and my sister made a comment about how I don't have a real job and that I'm basically just playing around on my computer all day. I was pretty offended, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I just laughed it off. And then the next week, she asked me to watch her kids again because she had something coming up, but I told her that I couldn't do that because I had some deadlines that I needed to meet. Well, she just got upset and said to me, "You're home all day. What could be so important? It's not like you're doing real work." And that was honestly the last straw for me. I told her that if she didn't think my job was real, then she could find someone else to babysit and I wouldn't be helping her anymore. Well, now she's furious and says that I'm punishing her and the kids over a harmless comment. My mom has been telling me to just let it go because according to her, family helps each other out, but I'm honestly still pissed off. So am I the jerk for refusing to babysit after my sister's disrespectful comments? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk and your sister is 100% at fault. For starters, being a freelance graphic designer and doing that as your main employment is not easy. That is insanely hard and it takes a lot of hustling to get that going. So for your sister to be like, "Oh, you're not actually working, what could be so important in your life?" Like, that is so uncalled for and so disgusting. Not to mention the fact that she then turned around and was like, "Oh, by the way, watch my kids." And it's like, no, what are you doing? You can't just make those kind of comments towards somebody and then expect them to bend over backwards to make sure your life is more comfortable. She's literally sitting there and being like, "Oh, you don't have a real job. You're not doing something that's productive. You're just on the computer playing around." And it's like, wait a second, what is a real job? If I'm making money and I'm providing for myself, then guess what? That's a real job. The guy has a flexible job with flexible hours, and he can literally decide when he does and doesn't want to work. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a dream. Why would someone not want to have that? And I guarantee you that the original poster probably works harder than their sister or anybody else in the family because he doesn't have a guaranteed paycheck at the end of the day. He has to hustle every single day just to make ends meet. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And I think anything your mom has to say about family helping each other out, in my opinion, is just such a dumb point. Because if your sister really was your family, then she wouldn't be making these harmful comments in the first place.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.